Chapter 2175. With Shengzhen's current strength, the surrounding forces did not dare to touch Murong Yu at all. So what if they coveted Shengzhen's resources? They did not have the ability to make a move. As for the more distant and more powerful forces, they were not interested in a small force like Murong Yu's. After all, there was always someone better. A force like Shengzhen's level was considered powerful in the surrounding stars, but there were many forces even more powerful than Shengzhen. Since Shengzhen was not threatened, the danger that Murong Yu felt should have come from him. However, he just couldn't figure out why danger would befall him for no reason at all. One must know that he had not been to any other place for 1,000,000 years. Unable to figure it out, Murong Yu finally gave up on guessing. At worst, he would just deal with whatever came his way. There was nothing to be afraid of. He would continue to cultivate. Many years passed like this. During these years, Murong Yu would sometimes feel uneasy, but sometimes he would not feel that way. However, the more it was like this, the more vigilant Murong Yu became. This was definitely the calm before the storm. Whoosh! On this day, a crack suddenly appeared in the void, not far in front of Murong Yu. Just as Murong Yu was alerted, a stream of light shot out from the void and shot toward him. Murong Yu narrowed his eyes slightly and reached out his hand to grab the stream of light. At this moment, he saw that the stream of light was a message talisman. However, it was not from anyone he was familiar with. The aura of the message talisman was rather unfamiliar. There were only a few words on the message talisman. Murong Yu, if you don't want Shengzhen to be destroyed, quickly come to planet Yang Yuan alone. I'll give you 1 day. If you don't show up in 1 day, then you can just wait for Shengzhen to be destroyed. Remember, you can only come alone. Murong Yu's face instantly darkened. The person who sent the communication talisman obviously knew who he was and even had his aura. Otherwise, the message talisman wouldn't have been able to reach him. However, who was that person? Was it his enemy? Or someone from Shengzhen? What was this person trying to do? Murong Yu had no idea where planet Yang Yuan was. Even after searching through his memories, he couldn't find anything. Could this person be a prankster? You just want to play with Murong Yu? As soon as this thought appeared in Murong Yu's mind, he ruthlessly erased it. This incident reminded him of the crisis he had sensed recently. Could it be that the danger he sensed was related to this matter? This was related to the survival of the entire Shengzhen. Whether it was a prank or not, Murong Yu had to take it seriously. Therefore, he summoned Zhang Ao, Duanmu Qing, and the others. Holy Lord, planet Yang Yuan is just a barren planet. It's at the edge of Shengzhen's territory. It's a godforsaken place. Usually, no one passes by it. Could it be that some ancient treasure has appeared there? When Zhang Ao found out that Murong Yu had summoned them to ask about a godforsaken planet, he couldn't help but laugh. There isn't any ancient treasure. I have some matters to attend to. Guard Shengzhen for me. If you see anything wrong, immediately activate the protective formation. As he spoke, Murong Yu took a step forward and disappeared in front of Zhang Ao and the others. Something's not right. Why does the Holy Lord want to go to planet Yang Yuan? And why is he in such a hurry? Zhang Ao and the others looked at each other. They all felt that something was wrong. Why don't we send some powerhouses over as well? Zhang Ao said hesitantly to the others. Zhang Ao, don't try to be smart. The Holy Lord must have made arrangements for this. If you ruin the Holy Lord's plans, how are you going to take responsibility? We'd better guard Shengzhen. Otherwise, if something happens to Shengzhen, how are we going to face the Holy Lord? Duanmu Qing said in a low voice. It was obvious that Duanmu Qing had a premonition that something was going to happen. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said that. The highest peak mountain was in the middle of Shengzhen. Shengzhen's territory was so vast that it would be difficult for a rebirth or chaos realm cultivator to circle Shengzhen. Therefore, the highest peak mountain was very far away from planet Yang Yuan. Most importantly, Morong Yu hadn't been to many places in Shengzhen's territory before. Therefore, under normal circumstances, Morong Yu wouldn't have been able to get to planet Yang Yuan in a day. He'd definitely given Morong Yu a huge problem. However, who was Morong Yu? He was a chaotic celestial body. Well, being a chaotic celestial body really had nothing to do with this. Morong Yu had always been meticulous in his work. Because of Shengzhen's territory, although Morong Yu hadn't been to many places, Hichu Luoshu's teleportation points were spread across 1 billion star regions. Of course, Morong Yu wouldn't just hand over the teleportation points to someone else. There were too many people around. What if someone found out? Therefore, he'd given the Hichu Luoshu teleportation points to Zhu Xiaoning. Every Shengzhen auction house had at least one teleportation point. Morong Yu had wanted to take precautions. After all, he didn't want Shengzhen's auction house to be robbed. With the teleportation points, he could bring Shengzhen's experts over immediately if something big happened. This time, the teleportation points were a huge help to Morong Yu. After teleporting directly to the star region where planet Yang Yuan was located, they were still extremely far away. However, with the teleportation points and Morong Yu's speed, they should be able to reach planet Yang Yuan within a day. Finally, just as the day was about to pass, Morong Yu appeared on planet Yang Yuan. On the tallest mountain peak on planet Yang Yuan, a young man with an indifferent expression sat cross-legged on the ground, looking in Morong Yu's direction. It was obvious that this was the person who'd sent Morong Yu a message. When Morong Yu saw the young man's expression changed to one of shock, as if he were shocked that Morong Yu had managed to arrive in time. However, the young man quickly calmed down. Morong Yu, as expected of Shengzhen's sect master, your speed really isn't just for show. You actually managed to get here within a day. And you're only at the first level of the Genesis realm, the young man said with a smile, putting away the shock on his face. Morong Yu's cultivation level had already reached the peak of the Genesis realm, but habit had caused him to hide part of his cultivation level. Right now, he was only showing that he was at the first level of the Genesis realm. The young man's cultivation level wasn't high, only at the peak of the heaven tier, so he couldn't see Morong Yu's true cultivation level. However, his cultivation level was just a disguise. This was because Morong Yu felt a strong soul ripple from the young man's body. He should be a soul cultivator, most likely a member of the soul tribe. However, why would someone from the soul tribe want to find him? The only one who had a grudge against him was Elder Hun Xian. Could that Elder Hun Xian be such a bastard? After so long, he still wanted to kill him? A hint of caution flashed across Morong Yu's eyes, but on the surface, his expression didn't change as he gradually approached. Who are you? Why did you ask me to come here? Good question. The young man laughed and stood up. I'm sure this question has been bothering you for an entire day. If you don't know why I'm here, then wouldn't I be too cruel? I hate cruelty the most. Then I'll tell you. I'm from the Soul Tribe, and Elder Hun Xian sent me here. As for the reason, it's very simple. You've offended someone you don't dare to offend. So, you deserve to die. So, kill yourself. Otherwise, if I attack, you won't die so easily. TSK, you're also a member of the Soul Tribe. If I devour your soul, then I can increase my strength. The cultivation technique that Elder Hun Xian imparted to me is really brilliant. As long as I devour enough souls, I can continuously break through. Perhaps the young man thought that Morong Yu was definitely going to die, so he started talking to himself. He didn't mind that Morong Yu knew more. Morong Yu's expression was cold, but he was still shocked by the young man's words. Elder Hun Xian possesses a cultivation technique that allows him to continuously improve his cultivation by directly devouring souls? If he were to constantly devour the souls of the Soul Tribe, then wouldn't he be able to break through to the Tao Lord or even Tao Father realm? Not to mention Tao Fathers, there wouldn't be many Tao Lords who were a match for him. Based on how petty Elder Hun Xian was, he would absolutely not spare Morong Yu. If Hun Xian were to break through, then Morong Yu wouldn't be able to resist him at all. Not to mention that Morong Yu only had 60 slaves at the initial Dao realm and Dao Lord realm. Even if he had 60,000 slaves, it wouldn't be enough for a single slap from a Dao Lord. So, Morong Yu felt that he had to stop Hun Xian from breaking through. However, he didn't have the strength to do so right now. So, he could only rely on the strength of others. Elder Hun she wasn't bad. So long as he revealed Elder Hun Xian's evil cultivation technique, then he would definitely die if Elder Hun Xian had devoured the souls of Soul Tribe members. However, before that, he had to kill this young man or save his life from this young man. Morong Yu could sense that the young man's soul battle strength was definitely not weaker than his. In fact, it was even stronger than his. Morong Yu's soul battle strength had already reached the peak of the true self realm. If the young man was still stronger than him, then he would be at the selfless realm. Don't think about how to kill me. I know that there's a virtue realm expert hiding in Shenzhen. That's why I lured you here. And you're really stupid. You actually came here alone. You're courting death. You can't blame me for that. The young man laughed coldly. Waves of soul ripples emanated from his body like a tide. He was ready to kill Morong Yu. Wait. What benefits did Elder Hun Xian give you? You're just his dog in the end. If you don't kill me, I can make you the vice sect master of Shenzhen. You can even become the sect master of Shenzhen. Right at this moment, Morong Yu suddenly shouted coldly. The young man was stunned when he heard that. His movements slowed down. Chapter 2176. As a Soul Clan cultivator at the Selfless Realm, Hun Dong was doing well in the Soul Clan. Hun Xian took good care of him. However, Elder Hun Xian was a Dao Lord. He had a large group of initial Dao Realm Soul Clan experts under him. He had countless Selfless Realm subordinates like Hun Dong. Hun Dong was only at the first level of the Selfless Realm. This kind of strength was not valued at all. Therefore, the treatment he received was only slightly better than the average person. Compared to the resources and treatment Morong Yu, the sect master of Shenzhen, the difference was like heaven and earth. They were not on the same level at all. If he could become the sect master of Shenzhen and control the resources of 1 billion star regions, even Elder Hun Xian would not be able to do so. Therefore, when Morong Yu made this suggestion, Hun Dong was stunned. Morong Yu's words had struck a chord in his heart. Hun Dong had to admit that he was tempted. However, this thought had just appeared in his mind when he immediately extinguished it. Morong Yu did not know who Elder Hun Xian was, but he knew. He was a vicious and merciless person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. If Hun Dong dared to betray Elder Hun Xian, he would definitely die. Even if he fled to the ends of the earth, he would definitely not be able to escape Elder Hun Xian's pursuit. Just like Morong Yu, even after 1,000,000 years, Elder Hun Xian still made his move in the end. The mission that Elder Hun Xian gave him had to be completed. Otherwise, it would be disobeying orders. As for Shenzhen's resources, they belonged to Elder Hun Xian. Hun Dong could not touch them at all. Otherwise, he would definitely die. Therefore, Hun Dong could not help but shudder. Then, he looked coldly at Morong Yu. Morong Yu, don't try to use flowery words to save your life. From the moment I accepted this mission, you were dead for sure. So die. Hun Dong laughed sinisterly. He increased his soul power again, wanting to kill Morong Yu with one blow. 10,000 layers of soul waves. At this moment, Morong Yu roared in his heart. His soul power, which had long been raised to the limit, surged out. He had unleashed the ultimate technique of the soul race. Under the control of Morong Yu, the vortex within the soul force spun even more crazily, devouring the soul force. Its might became even more terrifying. The moment Morong Yu attacked, Hun Dong prepared to attack. However, the distance between the two wasn't far. The instant Morong Yu launched his attack, Hun Dongzhen didn't even have time to react before he was blasted into the soul space by the myriad soul wave. Hun Dong was in Selfless Realm powerhouse after all. Even though he was only at the first level of Selfless Realm, his reaction speed was extremely fast. When Morong Yu's soul force bombarded his soul space, he had already started to mobilize his soul force to defend himself. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, dozens of soul attacks bombarded his soul. The defense that Hun Dong had condensed in a hurry was instantly pushed down the slope by Morong Yu's soul attack. On the other hand, the myriad soul waves came one after another, one blow after another. Often, before the soul waves in front dissipated, the soul waves behind had already rushed over. Furthermore, several layers of soul waves overlapped together and attacked him. Hun Dong did not know how terrifying Morong Yu's soul attack was, okay? He also did not know that Morong Yu actually knew the myriad soul waves, the ultimate technique of the soul race, okay? Therefore, he was directly met with tragedy. His soul was instantly severely injured. This was also because he was in Selfless Realm's soul cultivator. Otherwise, he would have died under Morong Yu's sneak attack. Chaos Blade. Shadow Step Power. At the same time that Morong Yu launched the myriad soul waves, other attacks from other aspects also burst out at the same time. When the Chaos Blade was launched, the surrounding void and even Hun Dong's power and soul power started to become chaotic. When Morong Yu stepped on the Shadow Step Power, it directly froze Hun Dong's body, power, soul, and even thoughts. Hun Dong, who was already close to a tragedy, was really in a tragedy. When his power, soul, body, and even thoughts stopped, he was already a fish on the chopping board. He could only be slaughtered by Morong Yu. Attacks were launched in a frenzy. Hun Dong's soul was already severely injured. This time, it was blasted into pieces. Morong Yu pursued relentlessly. Finally, Hun Dong's soul was directly shattered into countless pieces. Morong Yu did not dare to only destroy a part of Hun Dong's soul and leave a part behind. As a soul cultivator, he naturally knew how terrifying a soul cultivator was. Even if only a trace of his soul was left, he might be able to turn over a new leaf. Therefore, Morong Yu directly killed Hun Dong. Plop! Hun Dong's body knelt down weakly. There was no longer any breath of life. However, even though Hun Dong was already dead, he still had a look of unwillingness on his face. He was a Selfless Realm expert. He was actually killed by Morong Yu's storm-like attacks. He did not even have the chance to fight back. Of course, he was unwilling. After Hun Dong, Morong Yu also sat on the ground with a plop. Then, he panted heavily. His heart finally calmed down. Careless. Hun Dong definitely died because of carelessness. Otherwise, if he hadn't spoken so much nonsense and had treated Morong Yu as his opponent, the one who would have died wouldn't have been him, but Morong Yu. After Morong Yu arrived, although he was furious, he still maintained his calm. He treated Hun Dong as the strongest opponent in his life. At the same time, he was tempting Hun Dong with a huge temptation. At the same time, Morong Yu suddenly launched an attack. It was also because of Morong Yu that he was able to kill Hun Dong. Otherwise, if it was someone else, even if he had reached the peak of the true self realm, he might not be able to kill Hun Dong in a sneak attack. As a soul cultivator, Morong Yu knew how terrifying a soul cultivator's attack was. However, he also knew how fragile a soul cultivator's soul was, especially when he was facing a soul cultivator. Of course, if it was just a soul attack, Morong Yu still could not kill Hun Dong. The power of the Shadow Step and the Chaos Blade were of great help to Morong Yu. It could be said that the reason why Morong Yu could kill Hun Dong was that his soul attack, the power of the Shadow Step and the Chaos Blade worked well together. Otherwise, he would definitely not be able to kill Hun Dong successfully. After resting for a while, Morong Yu took away Hun Dong's spatial treasure. Then, he blasted Hun Dong's body into powder with a punch. Hun Dong is dead. I think Hun Xian already knows. With Hun Xian's vile heart, he will definitely not give up if he can't kill me this time. Next time, I'm afraid he will send a more powerful opponent. Murong Yu frowned slightly. He was definitely not a person who would sit and wait for death. He wanted to take the initiative to attack instead of passively facing the enemy. After all, if Hun Xian kept sending people over, Murong Yu could not guarantee that he would be fine. Moreover, now that he had a big family and business, who knew if he would threaten Murong Yu with Zhao Jiqing, Murong Xian and the others? Murong Yu had seen too many of such things. The probability of it happening was very high. However, he could only leave the initiative to Elder Hun Shi. However, there was no evidence at all. Swish, Murong Yu's figure flashed and he disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he had already arrived at the planet where Hun Dan had suppressed himself. Boy, why do you look so murderous? Hun Dan did not know what level of expert he was. Even though he had suppressed himself, he could still sense Murong Yu's existence at the first moment. Hun Dan, does your soul clan have a cultivation method that can enhance the soul realm by devouring the soul power? Murong Yu came straight to the point. He did not hide anything. Hun Dan's face suddenly changed. Murong Yu, have you seen anyone who cultivates this cultivation method? Murong Yu nodded. Although he had not seen it personally, Hun Dong had said it himself. He would not make it up, right? Therefore, he told Hun Dan everything he knew from Hun Dong. Bastard! Hun Dan's face turned livid. His eyes were flashing with anger. What's going on? Seeing Hun Dan's expression, Murong Yu could not help but be shocked. You don't know. That cultivation method doesn't devour ordinary souls. It devours the souls of the Soul Clan. Only the souls of soul cultivators are worth devouring. That's the taboo cultivation method of our Soul Clan. It has always been sealed. I didn't expect that old bastard Hun Xian to cultivate this cultivation method. If he continues, our Soul Clan will be in danger. In danger of being exterminated? Murong Yu was a little surprised. He did not expect that the cultivation method would be so serious. Soul Devourer great? The Soul Clan will be in danger once the law is out. This is a saying that has been passed down in our Soul Clan. Is it the Soul Devourer great? The law is the cultivation method that Hun Xian cultivate. This cultivation method is very heaven-defying. He only needs to devour the souls of soul cultivators to enhance his realm. But if he wants to become a Tao ancestor, he must devour the souls of all the people in the world. So serious? Murong Yu was shocked. It was not enough to devour the people of the Soul Clan. He had to devour all the souls in the entire universe. However, there was no other life in the entire universe. So what if Hun Xian became a Tao ancestor? What was the point? A sense of crisis. If what Hun Dan said was true, Murong Yu would definitely be in danger. Murong Yu would become very sensitive and active when it concerned the lives of himself and his family. Hun Xian hasn't cultivated successfully yet, has he? Let's kill him first. Besides, who can guarantee that Hun Xian can cultivate to the Tao ancestor realm? I think it's difficult for him to even reach the Tao Lord realm. We must plan ahead. Murong Yu, it's up to you. You don't want to be killed by Hun Xian in the future, do you? Hun Dan looked at Murong Yu with a serious expression. If the sky falls, there will be tall people to hold it up. Why do you want me, a short person, to hold it up? Murong Yu looked at Hun Dan speechlessly. It was not that he did not want to do it. It was just that the gap between them was too big. It was very difficult. Chapter 2177. Murong Yu, I believe you can do it. Hun Dan looked at Murong Yu with affectionate eyes. Murong Yu shuddered, then turned around and left. He really didn't want to do it. He didn't want to die. Murong Yu, don't go. Hun Dan was anxious and shouted at Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu continued to walk out without looking back. Murong Yu, do you want me, a disabled person, to do it? Once I break the seal, I will be attacked by the evil power. By then, I may become a devil who kills people without blinking. Do you want to see me like that? Murong Yu still ignored him and walked out quickly. Hun Dan was speechless. He could only change his words. All right, you don't have to do it. You just need to take my identity token to Elder Hun Shi and tell him about it. He will know what to do. If it was just an errand, he could do it. After all, it was related to him. Therefore, Murong Yu stopped and looked at Hun Dan, the first genius of the Soul Clan. I can run an errand for you. But what benefits should I get? You know, I have a big family now. Hun Dan was angry. Boy, I have already taught you the Soul Clan's most powerful combat skill, the myriad waves of soul. What else do you want? The Soul Clan's most powerful combat skill should not only be the myriad waves of soul, right? There should be something else? If I run an errand for you, I will risk being killed by Hun Xian. It's up to you. Murong Yu looked at Hun Dan and said lightly. Hun Dan was speechless. What Murong Yu said was the truth. However, the Soul Clan didn't have many skills of the most powerful combat skill. Soul waves at the 10,000 layers soul wave level were even rarer. Murong Yu might not be interested in other combat skills. How about this? I will teach you a group soul attack skill. It is very powerful. It's a lethal weapon in group battles. Murong Yu shook his head. He already had the Spirit Storm, so he wasn't interested at all. Following that, the bastard continued to list out a few of the Soul Race's clan suppressing battle skills and cultivation techniques, but Murong Yu rejected them all. These so-called cultivation techniques couldn't even compare to his Saint Soul Slash, Soul Storm, and other soul battle technique. I can make the decision to let you enter the soul pool 3 times. If you're still not satisfied, then forget about it. In the end, Hun Dan became angry. Okay, deal. Murong Yu agreed immediately when he thought of the soul pool's heaven-defying ability. That was 3 chances after all. In addition to the previous opportunity, he had a total of 4 opportunities to enter the Soul Lake. It should be known that the majority of the Soul Race only had 1 chance to enter the Soul Pool to be baptized in their entire life. Give this jade slip and my identity medallion to Hun Shi, and he'll know what to do. You can get out now. After giving the item to Murong Yu, Hun Dan directly asked him to leave. You're too inhospitable. If you do this, I'll be in a bad mood. If I'm in a bad mood, I won't be able to travel fast. If I'm slow, I don't know when I'll reach the Soul Race. Sigh, it's really sad. Murong Yu shook his head with a helpless expression. Hun Dan immediately showed a smile on his face. Murong Yu, take care. That's not bad. I'm in a good mood. I should be able to travel fast. Murong Yu smiled and left quickly. Seeing Murong Yu's figure disappear from his sight, Hun Dan couldn't help but curse. Kid, after I suppress the evil power, I'll deal with you right away. After leaving the planet where Huning was, Murong Yu entered Hichu Luoshu. Then, he teleported to the Soul Race's territory. Although he said that to Hun Dan, he didn't dare to neglect this matter. Otherwise, the longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. However, after arriving at the Soul Race, Murong Yu didn't look for Hun Shi immediately. Instead, he looked for Hun Ming. Hun Ming hadn't seen Murong Yu for more than 1,000,000 years, so he was quite happy. However, at this time, Hun Ming had grown into a 17 or 18-year-old youth. His strength had also improved greatly. He had reached the true self realm. His cultivation speed was extremely fast. Big brother Murong, why are you looking for my father? Is there something important? When he saw Murong Yu asking him to go find his father, and when he saw Murong Yu's serious expression, Hun Ming immediately knew that something must have happened. Murong Yu nodded. However, since it was a serious matter, he didn't tell Murong Yu. Elder Hun Shi, why do you look so sad? Murong Yu couldn't help but ask when he saw Elder Hun Shi. Elder Hun Shi's eyes lit up. Come, come. Morong Yu, sit down. Have you heard any news about Hun Dan? Hun Ming was quite concerned about the number one genius of the soul race. He ignored Hun Ming, who was beside him. However, Hun Ming seemed to be used to this situation. He rolled his eyes and sat down next to Morong Yu. Hun Dan is fine, Morong Yu replied. However, he didn't reveal Hun Dan's location. This was what Hun Dan had told him over and over again. Father, are you still worried about our clansmen dying? You're not the only elder in the soul race. Is there a need to worry so much? Hun Ming rolled his eyes. Elder Hun Shi glared at Hun Ming. What do you know? Our clansmen have been dying every day. If we can't find out the truth, who knows how many more will die in the future? Hearing the father and son's conversation, Morong Yu's heart skipped a beat. Elder Hun Shi, do your dead clansmen have lost their souls? It seems like they were devoured? Morong Yu asked. Elder Hun Shi and Hun Ming both looked at Morong Yu in shock. They asked in unison, How did you know? Morong Yu smiled but didn't say anything. He just asked, Do you have any suspects now? Elder Hun Shi had a lot of questions in his heart, but he still answered Morong Yu. We suspect that a beast that specializes in devouring souls has appeared in the soul race's territory. However, we don't have any leads. Morong Yu sneered. A beast? Did Elder Hun Xian come up with this idea? This time, only Elder Hun Shi was shocked. If Morong Yu knew about the deaths of those people from the Soul Tribe, then only a few people knew about it since Elder Hun Xian was the one who came up with this conjecture. Only the elders knew, and no one had leaked it out. In that case, how did Morong Yu find out? When he saw Elder Hun Shi's expression, Morong Yu knew what was going on. It was as he had guessed. Elder Hun Xian must have devoured the souls of those people. Even if it wasn't him, it had to be his people. After all, even Hun Dong knew that cultivation method. How could others not? However, what puzzled Morong Yu was that Elder Hun Xian must have obtained the Soul Devourer Great Art long ago. It was a cultivation method. But it hadn't happened before. It should have happened before, but Elder Hun Xian had done it in secret. No one had discovered it. Could it be that Elder Hun Xian was so anxious that he had begun to devour the souls of the soul race to increase his cultivation? Morong Yu, I see a problem in your expression. What do you know? Please tell me. Elder Hun Shi's expression became serious. Morong Yu didn't answer. He just looked at Hun Ming. Little Ming, this is a matter of great importance. It concerns the safety of the soul race and even the entire universe. If you know, can you guarantee that you won't say a word? Hun Ming nodded solemnly. Then, Morong Yu looked at Elder Hun Shi and said, You should know better than me that aside from the myriad soul waves, the Hun clan has another taboo cultivation technique, right? You mean the Soul Devourer Great Art? Law? Elder Hun Shi's expression changed slightly. He was about to ask about the Soul Devourer Great Art. When he was about to ask what the Soul Devourer Great Art had to do with the deaths of the soul race, he suddenly realized. Then he asked, Are you saying that someone in the soul race has cultivated that forbidden cultivation method? That's impossible. We've suppressed that cultivation method. No one can get close to it. Morong Yu sneered. Elder Hun Shi, are you sure that no one can get close to it? I've seen a Soul Devourer Great Art before. He's a soul race cultivator called Law. Then, Morong Yu gave a simple explanation of Hun Dong's situation. Hun Dong is Elder Hun Xian's subordinate. Are you saying that Hun Xian stole that forbidden cultivation method and is already cultivating it? Elder Hun Shi's expression changed again. Morong Yu didn't say anything. He just handed the jade slip and identity token that Hun Dan had given him to Elder Hun Shi. He didn't want Hun Shi to believe him. However, if Hun Dan spoke, Hun Shi would definitely believe him. As expected, after reading Hun Shi's message, Elder Hun Shi's expression became extremely serious. I didn't expect Elder Hun Xian to be so crazy. No, I must stop him from doing this. However, Hun Xian's authority and strength aren't inferior to mine. I have to make a fuss about this. Elder Hun, she muttered to himself. I don't know how long Hun Xian has been cultivating this cultivation method. No one knows how strong he has become. I suggest that we invite the soul race's ancestor. Otherwise, no one can suppress Hun Xian. That's all I have to say. Murong, you gave Hun Shi a suggestion. Perhaps that's the only way. Elder Hun Shi's expression became even more serious. Little Ming, accompany Murong Yu. I'll leave for a moment. Before he finished speaking, Hun Shi had already disappeared. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. He'd wanted Hun Shi to arrange for him to go into the soul pool. He hadn't expected Hun Shi to leave in such a hurry. Was he going to sneak in again? There was a world of difference between sneaking in and going in openly. Chapter 2178. Hun Shi went to deal with Hun Xian, leaving only Murong Yu and Hun Ming. In the end, Murong Yu, who was bored to death, returned to Hun Ming's manor. He did not dare to walk around in the Soul Tribe's territory. This was Hun Xian's base camp, and Hun Xian was determined to kill him. If he was killed by Hun Xian's people here, it would be an injustice. When he was free, Murong Yu could only enter the Hichu Luoshu to continue cultivating. The strength of the peak of the true self realm was really not enough. He needed to break through. Whether it was a breakthrough in the realm or a breakthrough in the power vortex, it was inevitable. Of course, if he broke through in both aspects, it would be a happy ending. However, the higher the realm, the harder it was to break through. But that was how cultivation was. Therefore, Murong Yu cultivated whenever he had time. After a few days, of course, he did not make any progress. When he appeared in Elder Hun Shi's hall again with Hun Ming, he saw that Elder Hun Shi looked depressed. Elder Hun Shi, did things not go well? Hun Shi nodded with a gloomy face. I've already reported this to the higher-ups, but they said that they still need to investigate. If they investigate, Hun Xian would have already reacted. What can they find out by then? Even if it's Hun Dan's words, no one will believe it. Murong Yu's face was gloomy. This matter concerned the Soul Tribe, and even the living beings of the entire universe. Logically speaking, the higher-ups of the Soul Tribe should have arrested Elder Hun Xian directly. Why were they dragging this out? Moreover, although Elder Hun Shi had only said this, it seemed that the matter was more complicated. Could it be that Elder Hun Xian has already controlled some of the Soul Tribe's experts? Those Downlord-level existences were also his people? Is that why they won't investigate? Once this thought appeared, it could not be stopped. In the end, Murong Yu could not help but speak out his guess. This time, Elder Hun Shi's face became more and more unsightly. This possibility is not impossible. Elder Hun Shi suddenly became angry when he thought of the reactions of some of the higher-ups that day. However, in addition to his anger, he also felt a chill in his heart. Those people up there were all Downlord-level cultivators. If they were inclined towards Hun Xian, or even controlled by Hun Xian, then the Soul Clan would not be far from extinction. After all, if Hun Xian had the ability to control the Downlord, who in the Soul Clan would be a match for him? Once Hun Xian devoured the souls of all the Soul Clan cultivators, just how terrifying would his strength be? No, we must stop this. Hun Xian gritted his teeth, but he immediately felt a strong sense of helplessness rising from his heart. What could he use to stop Hun Xian? He was merely a Downlord. Perhaps he was no longer a match for Hun Xian. Hun Dan. Elder Hun Xian suddenly thought of Hun Dan. Perhaps Hun Dan was the only one who could save the Soul Clan at this moment. Therefore, he looked at Murong Yu and said that he wanted to see Hun Dan. Murong Yu shook his head. Hun Dan was his friend now. Although Elder Hun Shi was not bad, who knew if he had any bad intentions towards Hun Dan? Now that Hun Dan had sealed himself, Hun Dan would be in danger if Hun Xian wanted to harm him. Murong Yu, the Soul Clan is now at a critical moment of life and death. I must see Hun Dan. Elder Hun, she was anxious. I can discuss this with Hun Dan. If he's willing to see you, I'll bring you there. Otherwise, I don't want anything to happen to Hun Dan, Murong Yu said calmly. Alright. Elder Hun, she knew that Murong Yu was telling the truth, so he compromised in the end. Then, Murong Yu left the Soul Clan and teleported to the planet where Hun Dan was through Hichu Luoshu. This matter concerned his life and death, so Murong Yu did not dare to be negligent. Kid, is the matter settled? Before Murong Yu could speak, Hun Dan's voice was heard. Murong Yu stared at Hun Dan angrily. Look at me. Do I look like the matter has been settled? Then, Murong Yu told Hun Dan about his suspicion and Hun Xian's speculation. Hun Dan was worried immediately. If Hun Xian has really controlled those Pathmasters, the Soul Clan is not far from being exterminated. I'm afraid that no one in our universe can resist Hun Xian. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. Wasn't Hun Dan talking nonsense? He was not here to listen to his nonsense. He was here to see if Hun Dan had a solution. Hun Dan, what's your current strength? Can you temporarily release your seal? Can you go and kill Hun Xian? Hun Dan was silent instantly. Looking at the silent Hun Dan, Murong Yu knew that there was a chance. Otherwise, Hun Dan would have denied it long ago. It's not that I can't temporarily release my seal and give up on suppressing myself. But if I do that, the evil power that I tried so hard to suppress will counterattack again. But, Hun Dan gritted his teeth. For the sake of the Soul Clan, I've decided to release my seal first. Hearing that, Murong Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Hun Dan's words were enough. Then, he did not have to travel back and forth, and he did not have to face the terrifying existence of the Virtue and Virtue realm. Facing these people who were much stronger than him, Murong Yu felt really pressured. Boom! Just as Murong Yu heaved a sigh of relief, a terrifying aura was released from Hun Dan's body. Murong Yu, who was caught off guard, was directly sent flying by the terrifying aura. In the end, Murong Yu was sent flying out of the planet where Hun Dan was. He then smashed a few planets in the distance before he stopped in the starry sky. Hun Dan, you bastard! You must have done it on purpose. The anger in Murong Yu's heart surged. With a roar, he flew back from afar. When he returned to the place where Hun Dan had sealed himself, he saw an ordinary young man standing there and looking at him with an evil smile. Who else could it be but Hun Dan? However, Hun Dan already had a physical body. His strength was restrained. He stood there and did not show his strength. He was very ordinary. Who would know that he was the #1 genius of the Soul Clan? I'm sorry. I haven't released my seal for a long time. So, I couldn't control my strength and sent you flying. I'm really sorry. Seeing Murong Yu rushing back angrily, Hun Dan spoke first. Immediately, Murong Yu's words were stuck in his throat, unable to come out. Now that Hun Dan had said so, if he continued to mention this matter, wouldn't it make him seem petty? Seeing Murong Yu's aggrieved look, Hun Dan smiled and thought, Boy, I'll let you be arrogant. I did it on purpose. What can you do to me? Swoosh. At this moment, Hun Dan flew up into the sky. Just when Murong Yu wanted to go back to the solar system and not get involved in this matter, Hun Dan's big hand grabbed him and took him away. Murong Yu was stunned. Hun Dan, I don't have to get involved in this matter, do I? I'm just an ant. Murong Yu rolled his eyes and said, As a member of the Soul Clan, how can you not get involved in this matter? Hun Dan said calmly, Damn it. You're pushing me into the fire pit. If you're no match for Hun Xian and the others, won't I be in trouble? Murong Yu cursed in his heart. However, he did not say anything. He was grabbed by Hun Dan and flew back to the territory of the Soul Clan. As for the teleportation through Hichu Luoshu, forget it. It would be a tragedy if Hun Dan, this bastard, killed him because of the money. Of course, with Murong Yu's understanding of Hun Dan would not do that. However, the fewer people who knew about Hichu Luoshu's secret, the safer he would be. One must always be on guard against others. It was unknown if Hundan had reached the Daolord realm. His speed was extremely fast. Murong Yu could not be compared to him at all. If Hundan's speed was compared to Murong Yu's, Hundan's speed was like a cheetah while Murong Yu was like a snail. A few days later, they arrived outside the territory of the Soul Clan. When Hundan saw that the territory of the Soul Clan had become bigger, he was obviously stunned. However, he quickly entered the territory of the Soul Clan. However, as soon as he entered the territory of the Soul Clan, Murong Yu felt that something was wrong. Everyone was in a state of panic. Yes, the Soul Clan cultivators who were usually arrogant and haughty had a panicked expression on their faces. Could it be that something major has happened in the Soul Clan in the past few days? Murong Yu pondered in his heart. His extremely powerful divine perception immediately pierced into the memories of a comparatively weaker Soul Clan cultivator. Murong Yu's face instantly turned gloomy after he read the cultivator's memories. On the other hand, Hundan's expression was unsightly as well. Obviously, he'd read the memories of some Soul Clan cultivators as well. Moreover, he'd read even more memories, and he'd learned even more things. Just 3 days ago, Hun Xian had suddenly launched an attack. He'd captured Elder Hun Shi, Elder Hun Shi's faction, and some other elders' factions and imprisoned them. Besides them, many Grand Dao Realm, Selfless Realm, and True Self Realm cultivators of the Soul Clan had been captured as well. Elder Hun Xian had announced to the outside world that Elder Hun Shi and the others were traitors of the Soul Clan, and they'd colluded with other clans in an attempt to destroy the Soul Clan. So, they'd struck first and captured all of them in one go. Today, they were going to kill them. Most members of the Soul Clan were aware of the character of Elder Hun Shi and the others. Especially after Elder Hun Shi and the others had been captured, Elder Hun Xian's people had suddenly become arrogant. They'd completely regarded everyone else as inferior, while they themselves were superior. They'd cursed and even beat them up wantonly. However, the members of the Soul Clan did not dare to voice their anger. This was because Elder Hun Xian and the others could kill them at any time. The souls of those who'd been killed were gone. Obviously, the souls of those who'd been killed had all been devoured by Elder Hun Xian's people. In just a few days, the Soul Clan had lost hundreds of thousands of powerhouses. Therefore, all the Soul Clan cultivators were in a state of panic. No one knew if they'd be the next to die. Chapter 2179. Strike first and gain the upper hand. Hundan said coldly with a murderous aura. Obviously, Hun Xian's plan had been exposed. However, he had falsely accused Elder Hun Shi and the rest of them of being traitors. Those who were captured at the same time should all be on Elder Hun Shi's side. As for those who were still alive, they were either under Elder Hun Xian's control or under Hun Xian's command. Basically, under the control of those elders, the cultivators of the Soul Clan did not dare to make any moves. Murong Yu looked at Hundan. Today we'll have to ask Elder Hun Shi and the rest. What do you think? What do I think? I'll see who dares to touch them, Hundan said with a murderous aura. He and Murong Yu both understood that although they said they would ask Elder Hun Shi and the rest, the final result would be that Elder Hun Shi and the rest's souls would be devoured by Hun Xian. Once the souls of the Great Virtue Realm cultivators were devoured, Hun Xian's strength would increase tremendously. In the central square of the Soul Clan. At this moment, countless Soul Clan cultivators were standing around the square. Tens of millions of Soul Race cultivators knelt in the huge plaza. These cultivators looked haggard and their eyes were lifeless. However, all of them were furious. These people were the so-called traitors. Today, Elder Hun Xian would kill them as a warning to others. Behind the square, there was a huge spectator stand. Elder Hun Xian sat in the center of the spectator stand. Beside him stood his trusted subordinate. Among them, there were a few who had reached the Downlord level. Originally, Murong Yu wasn't sure of the strength of those people. The only reason he was certain was because Hun Dan had told him. At this moment they were mixed in the crowd, looking coldly at Hun Xian and the rest on the spectators' stand. There are 3 Downlord level cultivators and Hun Xian whose cultivation level is unknown. Hun Dan, do you have the confidence to turn the tide? Or even kill Elder Hun Xian and the rest? Hun Dan rolled his eyes and stared at Murong Yu speechlessly. However, he did not say anything. It seemed like he was really confident. The Soul Clan is our home. We will never allow betrayal or subversion. On the other hand, Hun Xian and the others have committed treason. They want to join forces with the other races to destroy our race. We have zero tolerance for such traitors. Therefore, today, I will concentrate on killing these traitors as a warning to others. Other than Hun Xian and the others, I know that there are a lot of Soul Race members who are Hun Shi's accomplices. But it doesn't matter. In the future, I will find them one by one and kill them one by one. I won't allow traitors to destroy our race. Hun Xian stood up and glanced at the crowd. Then, he spoke slowly. The many Hun clan cultivators outside the square could not help but tremble when they heard this. Did Hun Xian mean that it was not enough for them to kill Elder Hun Shi and the others, and that they wanted to kill even more of the so-called traitors? Everyone was even more anxious. In fact, some of them even had thoughts of escaping from the Soul Race. They didn't know what Hun Xian was planning, but Murong Yu knew. Elder Hun Xian's words today were all to pave the way for him to devour souls in the future. In the future, he would be able to casually devour the souls of Soul Race cultivators. The reason was open and aboveboard. That person was a traitor to the Soul Race and deserved to die. How arrogant and conceited! Hun Dan said murderously. His eyes flashed with a terrifying murderous intent. However, Elder Hun Shi, who had been forced to kneel in the square, did not make a sound. It was not that they did not want to speak, but they had been sealed. They did not even have the ability to speak. Today, I will kill all of you with my own hands. As he spoke, Elder Hun Xian slowly reached out with his large hand. He was about to press it down on Elder Hun Shi and the others in the square. Hun Xian, you bastard! You cultivate the Soul Race's forbidden technique. You devour the souls of our clansmen to increase your cultivation level. We only found out about this and wanted to kill you. We never thought that you would turn the tables on us. You damned bastard! Even if you kill us today, you can't wipe away the clarity of the Soul Race cultivator's eyes. Hun Xian, you must die. Hun Xian, we won't let you go even if we die. Hun Xian, you and your lackeys are the traitors of the Soul Race. You are all sinners of the Soul Race. At this moment, the prisoners, who had been sealed and could not even speak, began to curse loudly and angrily. The crowd did not believe that one person was cursing. However, with so many people cursing Elder Hun Xian in unison and Elder Hun Xian's perverse behavior over the past few days, how could the spectating Soul Race cultivators not know the truth? Anger. Everyone was furious. However, they could only be angry but did not dare to say anything. This was because Elder Hun Xian and the others were too powerful. Even if they caused a ruckus, they would be the ones to die in the end. Elder Hun Xian was furious. He glanced coldly at the 3 Dao masters behind him. Didn't they say that Elder Hun Shi and the others had been sealed? Why were they speaking now? Hun Dan, you did this, didn't you? Murong Yu turned to look at Hun Dan beside him. Although Hun Dan had done it very discreetly, he could not escape Murong Yu's senses. Moreover, he realized that not only had Elder Hun Shi regained the ability to speak, but the seal on his body had also been removed. He had regained his strength. However, they did not do anything. They were still kneeling where they were. Perhaps Hun Dan had already transmitted his voice to them. As long as Hun Dan made his move, they might cooperate with him. However, even so, Hun Dan's strength was far inferior to Elder Hun Xian's. Even if he mobilized all the remaining cultivators of the soul race, they would not be as good as Elder Hun Xian. After all, peak combat strength determined everything. A Downlord level existence was enough to annihilate everyone below the Downlord level. However, although Hun Dan was furious, he did not seem to be too worried. He even seemed to have a well-thought-out plan. Murong Yu did not know what Hun Dan was up to. Therefore, he did not bother to pay attention to him. After all, even if the sky fell, there were tall people to hold it up. If something went wrong, he would run away immediately. With his current combat strength, he did not have the ability to turn the tide. Traitor, how dare you slander me? Die. Hun Xian's face was livid. He shouted angrily and his hand was about to press down. At this moment, he suddenly felt that he was wrapped up by a huge force. Then, the scene in front of him changed. When Murong Yu came back to his senses, he realized that he was already standing on the spectator stand in front of Elder Hun Xian. Damn you, Hun Dan! Murong Yu came back to his senses immediately. He cursed at Hun Dan in his heart. Obviously, it was all thanks to Hun Dan that he was able to appear here. Kid, help me buy some time. At the same time, Hun Dan's voice rang in his ears. Damn you, why aren't you the one buying time? I'm just a Genesis Realm cultivator. Murong Yu was furious. Even so, he had to face Hun Xian. It was obvious that Hun Xian had seen him. A cold light flashed across his eyes. Suddenly, an extremely strong aura of death rose from Murong Yu's heart. Hun Xian was going to kill him. Murong Yu had goosebumps all over his body. He wanted to rush into Hichu Luoshu and run away immediately. But the chances of him escaping were not high. In a moment of desperation, Murong Yu shouted, "You're not Hun Tai's biological father." Hun Xian had wanted to slap Murong Yu to death, but he was shocked by Murong Yu's shout. Hun Tai, who was on the spectator stand, was shocked. He looked at Murong Yu in disbelief. Seeing that his shout in a moment of desperation had shocked Hun Xian, Murong Yu had an idea. He continued to make up a story. You've been treating Hun Tai as your own flesh and blood. But you don't know that you're just raising someone else's son. Didn't your wife tell you who Hun Tai's biological father is? Don't ask me how I know. I just know that Hun Tai is not your son. It's your wife who cheated with someone else. He's a bastard born out of love. Speaking of this, Murong Yu whispered in his heart, Hun Xian's wife, I'm sorry to you today. But since you're with Hun Xian, you're probably not a good person. You don't mind being slandered by me, do you? Bastard. You're talking nonsense. Hun Tai was trembling with anger. He pointed at Murong Yu and shouted. Bastard, who did you say was spouting nonsense? Murong Yu retorted. I'm talking about you. Hun Tai was furious. Ha ha. Look, Hun Tai admitted that he's a bastard, didn't he? Murong Yu burst out laughing. Puff people in the square and around the square couldn't help laughing secretly. Hun Tai was really stupid. Hun Tai, shut up. Elder Hun Xian's face was livid with anger. He shouted angrily. Hun Tai was confused and angry. Father, am I really not your son? Am I really the bastard of my mother and someone else? Puff, Murong Yu burst into laughter. So did the audience. How stupid was Hun Tai to be able to say such words? Elder Hun Xian was so angry with his stupid son that he almost fainted. He waved his hand and directly sealed Hun Tai's ability to speak, so that this idiot wouldn't say something stupid again. Hun Xian, the hat on your head is a cuckold. You've been cuckolded, but you still help others raise their son. You're so pitiful. Tell me, even if you've become a Tao ancestor, so what? This stain in your life can't be erased. Since you're so pitiful, I'll take pity on you. How about I tell you who Hun Tai's biological father is? When Murong Yu said this, Hun Tai, who was hiding in the crowd, trembled in his heart. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. It seemed that something was going to happen to him. Sure enough, dig out your earwax. Listen to me clearly. Hun Tai's father is Hun Dan, the first genius of the Soul Clan. Your wife had an affair with Hun Dan? Then she gave birth to Hun Tai. Damn you! Hun Dan wanted to kill Murong Yu. At this time, Murong Yu turned his head and glanced at Hun Dan in the crowd. His face was full of smiles. Hun Dan, this is my revenge. Ha ha. Chapter 2180. Hun Dan? When Murong Yu uttered those two words, everyone had different reactions. Some people were shocked, while others were at a loss. After all, although Hun Dan was the #1 genius of the Soul Clan, he had disappeared for too long. It had been so long that some of the Soul Clan members could not even remember him. However, which of the older Soul Clan members did not know of Hun Dan's existence? Elder Hun Xian's expression changed with a swoosh. It became even more unsightly than before. Moreover, his eyes flickered with a complicated look. Could it be that I was right? Seeing Hun Dan's current appearance, Murong Yu could not help but feel a little hesitant. If he had unintentionally said the truth, it would be a joke. Little bastard, you're talking nonsense here. You just want to save Hun Shi and the others. You traitor! Let me tell you today, even if the Heavenly King comes, you traitors will die without a doubt. Now I'm going to kill you. As he spoke, Elder Hun Xian attacked again. Hun Dan, you bastard, why don't you hurry up and attack? Murong Yu's heart was in his mouth. At this moment, he felt that Hun Xian's killing intent was extremely strong. He had a feeling that no matter what he said this time, Hun Xian would not stop. Moreover, Hun Xian was at least a terrifying existence at the Tao Lord realm. Murong Yu had no room to resist at all. Boom! Elder Hun Xian's furious attack directly smashed the spectator's stand where Murong Yu was, and even the void where he was standing, into dust. This guy is finished. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people could not help but sigh in their hearts. However, they soon discovered that Murong Yu was standing on the other side of the spectator's stand, safe and sound. However, there was an extra person beside him this time. It was an ordinary young man that most people could not recognize. It must be this young man who had saved Murong Yu from Elder Hun Xian's hands. However, this young man looked ordinary, just like an ordinary cultivator. How could he have the ability to save someone from Hun Xian's hands? Hun Dan. On the spectator's stand and around the square, there were still people who recognized Hun Dan. They immediately cried out in surprise. Bastard? Many people who didn't know better thought that these people were cursing. Moreover, these voices belonged to Tao Lords. An existence of that level was actually so angry that he scolded others? Thud thud thud, Elder Hun Xian looked at Hun Dan as if he had seen a ghost. Meanwhile, he took a few steps back. He was frightened by Hun Dan. One had to know that Hun Dan's title as the #1 genius of the soul race was not an exaggeration. His strength was extremely terrifying. Moreover, Hun Dan had disappeared for so many years. Now that he was back, who knew how powerful he was? Under the pressure, even Elder Hun Xian was frightened. It's me! Hunning took a step forward and looked at Elder Hun Xian with an indifferent expression. Elder Hun Xian, how dare you? Not only did he cultivate the taboo cultivation method of the soul race and devour the souls of his clansmen to cultivate, but he also wanted to kill Elder Hun Shi and the others who discovered his secret and wanted to eliminate him? You are the true sinner of the soul race. So, the one who should die is you. Elder Hun Xian gazed at Hun Dan with a complicated expression, and he was actually at a loss for words. The members of the soul race outside the square started to whisper in discussion. Who exactly is he? Who is Hun Dan? Idiot! You don't even know the #1 genius of the soul race? So, someone spoke of Hun Dan's origins. After that, everyone was shocked. After that, all of them were extremely excited. Because they'd seen hope. If Hun Dan was able to stop Elder Hun Xian, then the crisis the Soul race faced would be over. Moreover, they wouldn't have to live in fear all day long. Elder Hun Xian took a deep breath and stared fixedly at Hun Dan. Hun Dan, let me ask you a question. Is Hun Tai your illegitimate son? Pooh. Pooh. Murong Yu and Hun Dan spat out blood at the first possible moment. Murong Yu had just spoken casually, but he hadn't expected that Elder Hun Xian would actually take it seriously. Or perhaps, Hun Tai was really Hun Dan's illegitimate son? As for Hun Dan, he was speechless. First, he stared at Murong Yu fiercely. Then, he sneered at Elder Hun Xian. Do you think my son is as stupid as Hun Tai? He's your son. That's right. Because both of you are as stupid as your son. I don't believe that you're not Hun Tai's father. Elder Hun Xian's face instantly turned red. In fact, he regretted it the moment he said that. Wasn't he asking for a rebuke and a humiliation? However, Hun Xian was an old fox after all. He quickly calmed down. Hun Dan, did you come out to save Hun Shi and the others? I'm afraid I've disappointed you. Today, I'd like to learn from you, the #1 genius of the Soul race. I'd like to see if you've made any progress after so many years. While speaking, Hun Xian took a step forward and approached Hun Dan. Hun Dan waved his hand and sent Murong Yu away from the stand. When Murong Yu's feet touched the ground, he found that he was already in front of Elder Hun Shi. At this moment, Elder Hun Shi and the others had all stood up. Every one of them was emitting a terrifying aura. They were glaring at Hun Xian and the others on the stand. They were ready to attack. Today, even if they had to destroy the Soul race's territory, they would fight until the end. Murong Yu, are you okay? I have to thank you for this. If you hadn't invited Hun Dan, I'm afraid we would have been wiped out. Elder Hun Shi stared at the stand. However, his face darkened as he spoke to Murong Yu. It's just a small matter. You guys, on the other hand, were taken down in just a few days. I can see that your strength isn't bad. Why are you so useless? Murong Yu asked curiously. Elder Hun Shi and the others didn't show any signs of resistance. Otherwise, many of the Soul race's people would have died. Hun Shi and the others were taken down overnight. It was as if they had been captured without a fight. Elder Hun Shi's face darkened even more when he heard Murong Yu's words. I can't bear to look back on the past. Let's not talk about this anymore. That old bastard Hun Xian is really despicable and shameless. He actually drugged us. We can only blame ourselves for not being on guard. Otherwise, how could we have been taken down? Murong Yu rolled his eyes. He had already told Hun Xian that this person was a bad guy. However, Elder Hun Shi hadn't been on guard. He deserved to be taken down. When he saw Murong Yu's expression, Elder Hun Shi knew what Murong Yu was thinking. He didn't say anything. He just looked at the stands. At this moment, the great battle on the stands was about to begin. Hun Xian, surrender. You're no match for me. If you surrender, I might just suppress you forever. However, if you're stubborn, I'll just kill you. Hunning said in a low voice. Cut the crap. I'd like to see how strong you are. Hun Xian roared. He took a step forward and his body turned into a stream of light as he charged toward Hun Dan. Boom. At this moment, Hun Dan finally made his move. He threw out an ordinary punch. However, it was this ordinary punch that Elder Hun Xian couldn't block. In the blink of an eye, he arrived first. Hun Dan's punch landed on Elder Hun Xian's body and sent him flying. Elder Hun Xian's body smashed through a large area of the void. He spat out blood in the air. With a swoosh, he disappeared from everyone's sight. He was sent flying by Hun Dan. How powerful! Elder Hun Xian was a Dao Lord after all. However, he couldn't withstand a single blow? How terrifying was Hun Dan's strength, as expected of the #1 genius of the Soul Clan. Good. Kill that bastard Hun Xian. After the shock, everyone cheered loudly. They were all overjoyed. However, there was no joy on Hundan's face. He was as calm as an ancient well. As expected of the #1 genius of the Soul Clan. You injured me with a single blow. Not bad. Hun Xian's voice was heard slowly. At the same time, everyone saw Elder Hun Xian flying toward them from afar. Although he was in a sorry state, he didn't seem to be seriously injured. Everyone was greatly disappointed, however. A cold light flashed in Hundan's eyes. He looked at Hun Xian, who was flying toward them. He knew how powerful that punch was. Even if he couldn't kill Hun Xian with a single blow, it shouldn't be a problem to severely injure him. It could only mean that Hun Xian was quite powerful. Swoosh! Hundan suddenly disappeared from where he was. The moment he disappeared, Hun Xian, who was in the air, suddenly let out an earth-shattering scream. With a bang, he was stepped on by Hundan. He couldn't withstand a single blow. If you 3 old men don't attack now, when will you? Hun Xian roared angrily. Swoosh! Swoosh! Whoosh! The 3 Dowlords who were sitting cross-legged on the spectator stand finally attacked. Their figures flashed and they surrounded Elder Hun Xian and Hundan. Hundan, give up. You can leave the Soul Clan. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless, one of the Dowlords said coldly. Hundan's eyes flashed with a terrifying cold light. As Dowlords and ancestors of the Soul Clan, the 3 of you can't differentiate right from wrong and are helping the evildoer? Do you want the Soul Clan to be annihilated? Once Hun Xian gains power, you won't have a good ending. The 3 Daelords' faces immediately turned ugly and complicated. However, they shook their heads in the end. Leave. Otherwise, we'll attack. Hundan was furious. These 3 old men are really stubborn, aren't they? They've already said so much and they still want to attack? Since that's the case, I'll have a taste of the 3 ancestors' strength. I, Hundan, will announce today that Hun Xian wants to overthrow the Soul Clan. I won't allow this to happen. Today, Hun Xian and the others must die. I'll kill anyone who stops me. As he spoke, Hundan kicked Hun Xian, who was severely injured, away. He planned to deal with him slowly later. Meanwhile, he stared at the 3 ancestors of the Soul Clan with murderous intent. Chapter 2181. Seeing Hundan being so stubborn, the 3 old ancestors were infuriated. Although Hundan was the #1 genius of the Soul Clan, the 3 of them were veteran Dowlords. Even though Hundan was talented and intelligent, how could he be a match for them at such a young age? Moreover, there were 3 of them. No matter how talented Hundan was, he shouldn't be so arrogant. Bang! 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 The 3 ancestors were furious. They felt that Hundan was looking down on them. Therefore, they instantly raised their strength to the Dowlord level. The increase in strength was not a big deal. However, all the Soul Clan cultivators in the square were suppressed by their terrifying aura. Most of them were pressed to the ground. It couldn't be helped. The aura was too terrifying. It wasn't something that low-level cultivators like them could resist. Even Murongyu was almost pressed to the ground. If Elder Hun she hadn't protected him, he would have been pressed to the ground. However, Elder Hun she was only a Dowlord. He couldn't resist the Dowlords at all. As time went on, he would probably be pressed to the ground. Hundan, come up and fight. Let me teach you a lesson and let you know how to behave, one of the Dowlords shouted coldly. At the same time, he had already soared into the sky. Stubborn old man. Hundan was furious as well. He soared into the sky. After they left the ground, their aura was still terrifying. However, it didn't affect the people on the ground much. However, they couldn't see the battle between the 3 of them clearly. Not to mention their vision, even their divine consciousness couldn't get close to them. After a while, bang! A figure was knocked down from the sky. Everyone's heart tightened. They were afraid that the person who was knocked down was Hundan. However, they heaved a sigh of relief when that person fell to the ground. That person was one of the 3 Dowlords. Hun Dan was fighting against 3 Downlords, but he still defeated one of them. Such strength! Everyone was excited. Even Morong Yu was flabbergasted by this. Hun Dan's strength was so terrifying. Bang! Bang! After the first Downlord, the second and third Downlords were knocked down from the sky by Hun Dan. All of them were in a sorry state and fell deep into the ground. He was no match for Hun Dan at all. Hun Dan's strength was too terrifying. After defeating the 3 Downlords, Hun Dan descended slowly from the void. 3 old fellows, how could you be so weak? Did you lose on purpose? Go and kill Hun Dan immediately. Otherwise, all of your descendants will die. None of them will be able to live. Hun Xian was on the verge of collapse. He angrily roared. An ancestor crawled up from the ground. He looked at Hun Xian angrily and said, "Bastard, Hun Dan is too powerful. We are no match for him. Even if you use our descendants to threaten him, we are no match for him." Everyone suddenly came to a realization. It turned out that the 3 Downlord-level old ancestors weren't colluding with each other. Instead, Hun Xian was using their descendants to threaten them. Due to the safety of their descendants, the 3 ancestors had no choice but to compromise. If you don't want to die, go and perish together with Hun Dan. Hun Xian was furious. His face was ferocious. They don't stand a chance. Hun Dan landed near the 3 great ancestors and sealed their powers. Now, it was impossible for them to perish together with Hun Dan. Hun Xian's face was extremely ugly. However, he suddenly burst out laughing and said, "Hun Dan, do you think you can stop me like this? Haha! I am destined to become a Downlord-level existence. The most powerful existence in the entire universe. None of you can stop me. As for Hun Dan and Morong Yu, you will be the first to bear the brunt. In the end, you will be killed by me." Morong Yu's body trembled. Wasn't he being implicated for no reason? What did this have to do with him? He wasn't the one who foiled their scheme. He wanted to cry but had no tears. But then again, this matter really was because of Morong Yu. If it wasn't for Morong Yu, perhaps no one would have found out that Hun Xian had cultivated the Soul Clan's forbidden technique. However, if Hun Xian hadn't sent people to kill him, no matter how resourceful Morong Yu was, he wouldn't have found out. So, in fact, Hun Xian had exposed himself. It didn't have anything to do with Morong Yu. At most, Morong Yu could only add fuel to the fire. Whoosh! Before his voice died away, Hun Xian suddenly jumped onto the spectator's stand. Before an expert at the initial Tao realm could react, Hun Xian had already slapped him to death. At the same time, he extracted his soul. After extracting the opponent's soul, Hun Xian swallowed the soul. In the blink of an eye, Hun Xian's aura recovered a little. He could rely on swallowing souls to recover from his injuries? Moreover, Morong Yu vaguely felt that things weren't that simple. Bang! 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 Hun Xian attacked again and again. Those Soul Clan cultivators who were originally his subordinates were all slapped to death. Then, their souls were all swallowed. After swallowing a few souls, Hun Xian's injuries were completely healed. After his injuries were healed, he didn't stop swallowing souls. He continued to do so. His aura was constantly increasing. Every time he swallowed a soul, his aura and strength would increase. Perhaps this was the terrifying part of the forbidden cultivation method? However, Morong Yu had some doubts. Even if the soul-devouring technique was powerful? It was quite heaven-defying, but it couldn't be heaven-defying to this extent, could it? If the souls Elder Hun Xian swallowed were stronger than his own, it would make sense for his cultivation level to increase. However, the souls he swallowed were weaker than him. Even if there was an increase, it would be very weak. How could it be so obvious? Could it be? Morong Yu suddenly thought of a terrifying cultivation method. At this moment, Elder Hun Xian was already sitting cross-legged on the ground. Thump! 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 In the square, the Soul Clan cultivators were lying limp on the ground. There was no longer any life in them. As soul cultivators, everyone saw that the souls of these dead people were rushing towards Elder Hun Xian at lightning speed. In the end, they were all swallowed by Elder Hun Xian. Moreover, everyone also realized that these dead people were all Elder Hun Xian's subordinate. This further confirmed Murong Yu's guess. A large number of Soul Clan cultivators had suddenly died, and their souls had been completely swallowed by Elder Hun Xian. Rumble. In a short period of a few breaths of time, Elder Hun Xian had broken through from the Dao Monarch realm to the Dao Lord realm. Moreover, he was still swallowing souls, and his cultivation was still rising swiftly. The bastard's face had turned green. It had only been a few breaths of time, and he wasn't able to stop it at all. When he finally reacted and intended to stop it, he noticed that he couldn't stop it at all. He couldn't stop Elder Hun Xian from swallowing their souls, and a large number of Soul Clan cultivators had suddenly died. Then, he could only kill Elder Hun Xian. So, Hun Dan attacked, and he directly charged towards Elder Hun Xian. Haha! Hun Dan, I'll show you how terrifying a forbidden cultivation method is. Hun Xian roared with laughter, but he didn't fight Hun Dan. He just teleported away. It seemed like he felt that he wasn't a match for Hun Dan right now, and he intended to grow stronger before annihilating Hun Dan? I'll charge into the peak of the Dao Lord realm once I've swallowed those people who've cultivated forbidden cultivation methods. When he spoke up to hear, Elder Hun Xian's expression suddenly turned savage. But if it wasn't for all of you Hun Dan, then how could I have only broken through to the peak of the Dao Lord realm? So long as all of them attain the Dao Lord realm, then I'll be able to charge into the Dao Lord realm and become the strongest existence in the universe. Elder Hun Xian's words had finally confirmed Murong Yu's guess. He finally understood why someone at the selfless realm or even a lower realm of cultivation could cultivate that forbidden cultivation method. It wasn't that Hun Xian was very generous, and he'd done it on purpose. Cultivating forbidden cultivation methods was like raising a Gu king. First, one had to raise a large number of ordinary Gu and make them grow stronger and stronger. In the end, these Gu would fight and devour each other to give birth to the strongest Gu king. Amongst those who cultivated forbidden cultivation methods, Hun Xian was the Gu king, whereas the others were just ordinary Gu, and they were completely for Hun Xian to devour. The stronger they were, the greater Hun Xian's accomplishments would be after he devoured them. It wasn't just Murong Yu who'd come to an understanding, many others had as well. Especially those who'd cultivated forbidden cultivation methods. They'd been terrified out of their wits since a long time ago when they saw what happened to the others. So, all of them started fleeing towards the surroundings. However, they had nowhere to run at all. Everywhere Hun Xian passed, all those who'd cultivated forbidden cultivation methods fell to the ground and perished. On the other hand, their deaths allowed Hun Xian to grow stronger and stronger. Quickly stop Hun Xian and place all his subordinates into the spatial treasures. So long as Hun Xian is unable to devour their souls, then he won't be able to continue growing stronger. Right at this moment, Murong Yu suddenly shouted explosively. Only now did the others recover from their shock. So, all of them attacked and knocked out Hun Xian's subordinates before placing them into their spatial treasures. That way, Hun Xian wouldn't be able to devour their souls. Out of consideration for their own lives, Hun Xian's subordinates didn't run away at all. Instead, they walked in front of the others and knocked themselves out with a single slap, allowing the others to put them into the spatial treasures. Little bastard, I'm going to kill you! Hun Xian was furious. With a loud roar, he immediately pounced towards Murong Yu to kill him. Murong Yu was so frightened that he let out a strange cry. His figure flashed and disappeared from where he'd been standing. As it turned out, he'd already hidden himself in Hichu Luoshu. Now that the situation was critical, he could be killed if he wasn't careful. Murong Yu didn't want to stay outside any longer. In Hichu Luoshu, if Han Xian was subdued, then he could come out. Otherwise, he'd directly teleport away from this troublesome place. Chapter 2182. At this moment, Han Xian was a Daolord, and he was much stronger than Elder Hun Shi. Han Xian's expression instantly changed when he saw Elder Hun Xian charge over with surging killing intent. Murong Yu was watching all of this from within the Hichu Luoshu. At this moment, the Hichu Luoshu was attached to Elder Hun Shi. If Elder Hun Shi was unable to escape, then he could only teleport away. It was naturally impossible for Elder Hun Shi to be a match for Elder Hun Xian. However, as the number one genius of the Hun clan, Hun Dan wasn't just for show. His figure flickered as he charged over. At this moment, Elder Hun Xian didn't want to fight Hun Dan directly. So, he turned around and left when he saw Hun Dan charge over. He continued to devour those Hun clan cultivators who'd cultivated taboo cultivation technique. However, at this moment, most of the people who had cultivated the taboo cultivation technique had already been taken into the He-Tu and the Luoshu. Even if Hun Xian possessed heaven-defying ability, there was no one's soul that he could devour. However, Hun Xian wasn't an idiot. The reason he hadn't devoured anyone was because they'd just been taken into the treasures, and they hadn't vanished. They were still with the other cultivators. So, Han Xian immediately changed his target and started to kill the other cultivators. After killing these cultivators, Hun Xian devoured their souls. Moreover, he dragged out all the cultivators who'd cultivated taboo cultivation techniques from their treasures, and then he killed and devoured their souls. However, they were still unable to stop Hun Xian from devouring their souls. "Give me all the treasures! Run as far as you can!" Hun Dan was furious and roared loudly. Swoosh! 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 Hun Dan started to take the treasures. At the same time, the others cooperated with him and charged swiftly towards the distance. Fleeing for their lives was more important. However, Elder Hun Xian was still going on. Now, it depended on whether Hun Dan or Elder Hun Xian had more treasures. If Hun Dan had more treasures, then he could suppress Hun Xian's cultivation. On the other hand, if Elder Hun Xian had more treasures, then he could ceaselessly improve his cultivation until he reached the peak of the Daolord realm. After a round of competition, only Hun Dan and Hun Xian remained in the vicinity of the square. In the end, Hun Xian was still unable to advance to the peak of the Daolord realm. However, his cultivation wasn't inferior at all. The mid-rank Daolord realm. In Murong Yu's opinion, Hun Xian was still inferior to Hun Dan. However, Murong Yu also noticed that the evil force that had been completely suppressed lingered around Hun Dan once again. Although it was quite weak now, Hun Dan had to spend more energy to suppress this evil power. If this went on for a long time, Hun Dan might not be able to suppress the evil force and be completely invaded by it. At that time, Hun Dan would become a homicidal maniac who only knew how to kill. Moreover, the more aggressive the evil energy was, the weaker the power that Hun Dan could unleash would be. Therefore, Hun Dan needed to end the battle quickly and get rid of Elder Hun Xian first. "Hun Xian, let us fight to the death. Today, either you die or I die." Hun Dan glared at Hun Xian coldly. His murderous aura soared. Elder Hun Xian sneered, "You will be the only one who will die today. Die for me." While speaking, Hun Xian had already made the first move. He was engaged in a fierce battle with Hun Dan. It seemed like Hun Xian was utterly unaware of the unusual state that Hun Dan was in. Otherwise, he didn't have to fight Hun Dan at all. He just had to buy time, and once time passed, Hun Dan would naturally not be a match for him. However, both of them wanted to deal with each other as soon as possible. One naturally wanted to become king, while the other didn't want the Hun clan to be annihilated just like that. So, in an instant, the battle had entered into a state where it was daytime. The aftershock of the battle between two mid-rank Dowlords was rather terrifying. No one dared to approach them. So, no one was able to see how they fought. Moreover, they didn't know who was stronger. Ancestors, when are all of you going to make a move against him? Could it be that all of you want the Hun clan to be annihilated by that bastard Hun Exile? Elder Hun, she arrived before the three ancestors that had been suppressed by that bastard earlier and spoke in a low voice. The three of them exchanged glances, and then one of them said, "It isn't the time yet. Even if the three of us join forces, we might not be able to defeat Hun Exile. So, we must wait for an opportunity. We must wait for an opportunity to kill Hun Exile with a single strike." As he spoke, a wisp of ghastly killing intent flashed through the ancestor's eyes. Hichu Luoshu was surprised, but it didn't take long for him to recover from his shock. Those three old fellows weren't heavily injured at all. Obviously, those three old fellows had colluded with Hundan. Everything that had occurred just now was merely an act. After all, they were supreme ancestors of the Hun clan. Hun Exile had actually used their descendants to threaten them, and it made them extremely furious. However, they had some misgivings before this, so they hadn't resisted. But it was different now. Elder Hun, she was a smart person, and he immediately understood what was going on. "All of you old bastards deserve to be threatened by Hun Exile. If it wasn't for the fact that I can't defeat all of you, I would have slapped all of you to death with a single slap. All of you are still so timid even now. What trash." Elder Hun, she suddenly started cursing at them. The three ancestors were stunned, and then they recovered from their shock. But even then, their expressions were still quite unsightly. After all, it was a loss of face for all of them to be cursed at by a junior. "All of you are old foxes." Murong Yu rolled his eyes within the Hichu Luoshu. There was only a single reason why Elder Hun she had suddenly cursed, and it was to numb Hun Exile. In this way, Hun Exile would be caught off guard when the three ancestors suddenly attacked. Elder Hun she retreated swiftly after he finished roaring. He was an old fox as well, and he knew that a battle between Dowlords wasn't something that he could interfere in. Otherwise, only death would await him. Just like that, another 2 hours passed. Murong Yu was constantly observing the three ancestors of the Hun clan. At this moment, he suddenly noticed that they'd suddenly soared into the sky. The three ancestors had joined the battle. Presumably, the battle was about to come to an end. As expected. "All of you old bastards! All of you will definitely die!" Hun Exile's furious roar resounded from the sky. Even if the three ancestors had launched a surprise attack, they were still unable to kill Hun Exile in one go. This clearly showed how formidable Hun Exile's strength was. "Kill!" The three ancestors roared furiously in unison, and they cooperated with Hun Dan to launch a frenzied attack. Originally, Hun Exile had already been heavily injured by the surprise attack of the three ancestors. At this moment, the joint forces of the four of them had completely vanished. They were utterly powerless to resist, and they were successively defeated. In the end, Hun Exile blasted Hun Dan and the others back with a single punch, and then he directly smashed through space and transformed into a ray of light that flashed towards the distance. However, he hadn't fled very far when Murong Yu and the others heard an enormous bang resound. After that, a strand of terrifying force suddenly descended from the sky and smashed forcefully onto Hun Exile, who was caught off guard. Hun Exile let out a miserable and shrill cry, and then he was like a kite that had its string cut, and he fell down towards the ground. It was very obvious that Elder Hun Exile's aura had become even weaker. "Hun Dan, you're really something. You actually even seized control of the Grand Formation." Hun Exile roared furiously with dissatisfaction. Murong Yu instantly came to a sudden understanding when he heard this. At this moment, he finally understood why Hun Dan wanted him to stall for time earlier. It turned out that this fellow knew that the Soul Clan's grand formation had been controlled by Hun Xian after he entered the Soul Clan's territory. Therefore, he needed to invade the grand formation first and seize control of the grand formation. Otherwise, Hun Xian would have already escaped this time. If Hun Xian had escaped from the Soul Clan's territory, the universe was so big, where could they find him? With Hun Xian's strength, as long as he was given enough time, he could definitely advance to the peak of the Downlord realm, and he might even break through to the Downlord realm. Therefore, Hun Dan had to kill him. At this moment, Hun Dan finally stepped down slowly from the sky. However, Morong Yu realized that although he wasn't injured, the evil energy within the grand formation had already spread. However, the evil energy emitted from his body was getting denser and denser. If this continued, it wouldn't take long for Hun Dan to be unable to continue suppressing the evil energy. Therefore, Hun Dan didn't say anything, and he just pressed towards Hun Xian. The battle was nearing its end. Morong Yu walked out from the Hichu Luoshu. He believed that Hun Xian, who was severely injured and didn't have much strength left, was no match for Hun Dan and the others. As expected, Hun Xian basically didn't have the strength to fight back. After suffering a few attacks from Hun Dan, he was not far from death. There's one thing that I still don't understand. How did you find out that I've cultivated a forbidden technique? I'm confident that I've done it perfectly. Looking at Hun Dan and the others, Hun Xian said with a bitter smile, and his face was full of despair. Morong Yu's body trembled, and he suddenly had a bad feeling. As expected, the moment he had this feeling, he saw Hun Dan pointing at him. Morong Yu knew that Hun Dan wanted to take this opportunity to elevate his position in the Soul Clan. However, Morong Yu only wanted to make a fortune in silence. Moreover, he still felt that something was wrong. It's you. Elder Hun Xian looked at Morong Yu, and his face was full of surprise and weirdness. The bad feeling in Morong Yu's heart grew stronger and stronger. With a thought, he was about to enter the Hichu Luoshu again. However, it was too late. Even if I die, you must die. Hun Xian roared. Then, Morong Yu's heart was enveloped by an extremely strong aura of death. Morong Yu was shocked, and he wanted to rush into the Hichu Luoshu. However, at this moment, he suddenly noticed that there was another soul in his soul space. It was Elder Hun Xian's soul. As a soul cultivator, even though he was heavily injured, Hun Xian was still a Downlord. How could a mere peak Genesis realm cultivator like Morong Yu resist him? I'm dead! Morong Yu roared in despair. Chapter 2183. Even if I die, you must die first. Hun Xian's entire soul had entered Morong Yu's soul space. At this moment, he was roaring in Morong Yu's soul space. Hun Xian's physical body had gone soft and collapsed. Without a soul, it was useless no matter how strong his physical body was. It was over. Hun Dan's expression changed. He did want to use this opportunity to elevate Morong Yu's status in the Soul Tribe. After all, he was the biggest contributor to this. However, he did not expect that his finger would kill him. Hun Dan's expression changed and he rushed to Morong Yu's side. However, he did not dare to make any move. It was obvious that Morong Yu and Hun Xian were fighting in Morong Yu's soul space. In fact, there was no fighting in Morong Yu's soul space. Elder Hun Xian roared angrily after he entered Morong Yu's soul space. Then, he stopped. Morong Yu realized that he was looking at his 3 soul balls which had reached perfection in shock. 3 soul spheres? You actually have 3 soul spheres? You are from the chaotic tribe? Isn't the chaotic tribe extinct? Why are there more? Hun Xian said in shock. Why is there another chaotic tribe? Morong Yu was confused. He did not know what Hun Xian was talking about. Moreover, he had always been a human. How did he become a chaotic tribe? What kind of tribe was the chaotic tribe? Ha! You are from the chaotic tribe, the noblest tribe in the universe? Haha, if I could devour your soul, wouldn't I turn into a member of the Chaos tribe? By then, so what if the Soul tribe is powerful? Won't you become my slave obediently? Hun Xian laughed like a madman. Murong Yu looked at Hun Xian as if he was looking at an idiot. In fact, he was thinking of a way to destroy Hun Xian's soul. However, the disparity in power between them was too great. No matter how many ways he had, none of them would work. As he laughed, Hun Xian's entire soul attacked Murong Yu's soul. He wanted to devour Murong Yu's soul. It's over. Murong Yu was helpless. He couldn't fight against Hun Xian at all. Hun Xian sneered. He was already near Murong Yu's soul. He opened his mouth and was about to devour Murong Yu's soul. Just as Murong Yu was in despair, a sudden change occurred. 1. His soul, which had been motionless, suddenly began to tremble violently. Following that, a dazzling purple light erupted from his soul, instantly enveloping the entire soul space. It even dissipated out of the soul space and soared into the sky. Plop! Just as the purple light was released from Murong Yu's soul, the purple light disappeared. Regardless of their strength, all the Soul Clan cultivators in the Soul Clan's territory felt a strong pressure pressing down on them. This was the aura of a superior being. Most of the Soul Clan cultivators knelt on the ground involuntarily before they could react. This was the natural reaction of an inferior being when they saw a superior being. They couldn't resist at all and immediately submitted to him. Even someone as strong as Hun Dan and the 3 ancestors of the Soul Clan almost knelt down. Fortunately, the purple light emitted from Murong Yu's soul disappeared in a flash. Even though Hun Dan and the others were right next to Murong Yu, they didn't know that the aura that made them submit to him involuntarily came from him. Otherwise, how could they tolerate Murong Yu? Would they kill Murong Yu? After all, no one was willing to submit to another. Moreover, Murong Yu could make the entire Soul Clan submit to him. They couldn't resist at all. Hun Dan and the others were already in such a state, let alone Hun Xian who bore the brunt of it. The moment the purple light exploded, Murong Yu saw that Hun Xian was blasted into pieces and shattered into pieces. In the end, these pieces all entered Murong Yu's soul and became a part of Murong Yu's soul. Naturally, Hun Xian's memories became Murong Yu's memories. During this process, Hun Xian didn't even have time to show a surprised expression before he was blasted into pieces. He was dumbfounded. Murong Yu didn't know the situation of the entire Soul Clan. However, Elder Hun Xian's transformation was enough to shock and confuse him. What was that purple light? He didn't feel any strong killing power from the purple light at all. However, Hun Xian was blasted into pieces just like that. Nothing was left. Could it be that this was the latest battle skill that his soul had automatically comprehended? Or was this the ultimate skill of the Chaotic Clan? However, was it effective against the soul that invaded his soul space? Or was it effective against other souls? All kinds of questions. However, he had managed to keep his life, and Hun Xian had been killed. This was a good thing. He slowly opened his eyes and saw Hun Dan's concerned face. He then grinned, "I'm fine." Hun Xian was severely injured and died before he could unleash his power when he entered my soul space. However, it's a pity that his soul was shattered too. Murong Yu didn't want to tell anyone about the purple light. He wasn't an idiot. Moreover, Hun Xian's memories contained many secrets. The 3 ancestors of the Soul Clan didn't want Murong Yu to see them. Therefore, he could only make up this story. After all, there was no evidence now. He could say whatever he wanted. As long as you're fine. Hun Dan heaved a sigh of relief. If his actions had caused Murong Yu's death, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. All right, the crisis of the Soul Clan has been resolved. We should go. Hun Dan was obviously unable to suppress the evil power any longer. Therefore, he suggested that they should leave. Murong Yu is our hero. How can he leave just like that? I suggest that Murong Yu stay in the Soul Clan for a while. Let us take good care of him. One of the three ancestors said with a smile. However, before he could finish speaking, Murong Yu, Hun Dan and Hun Shi's faces darkened. Hun Shi was only a Tao Lord. He couldn't do anything. However, Hun Dan said directly, "What do you mean?" Murong Yu said that Hun Xian's soul has been shattered. He can't get Hun Xian's memories. You just want to put him under house arrest? Murong Yu looked at the ancestor of the Soul Clan with fire in his eyes. Although he didn't say anything about that, he was implying that he wanted to put Murong Yu under house arrest. Hun Dan, how can you say that? We definitely don't want to do that. Don't worry. The three ancestors' faces changed slightly. They looked at each other first. Then, another ancestor said in a deep voice. Hun Dan's face darkened even more. His eyes flashed with a terrifying cold light. He couldn't understand. Murong Yu was the greatest hero. Without him, the Soul Clan would have been wiped out. Didn't these people have any gratitude? How could they burn the bridge after crossing it and kill the donkey after it had outlived its usefulness? What if I insist on taking Murong Yu away? Hun Dan suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a deep voice. Murong Yu looked deeply at the three ancestors of the Soul Clan. Suddenly, he grinned and said, Hun Dan, forget it. I'll stay in the Soul Clan. I'm sure it's safe here, right? Three ancestors? We have to ensure your safety. Don't worry. This is the safest place in the entire universe. Even if the sect master wants to kill you, he won't be able to, one of the ancestors said with a smile. Hun Dan was surprised. He didn't know why Murong Yu wanted to stay when he knew that the three ancestors were up to no good. Hun Dan, you should leave first. Otherwise, you won't be able to suppress the evil force. As for me, the three ancestors won't dare to do anything to me. You can take me away after you've suppressed the evil force, Murong Yu said through voice transmission. Hun Dan finally knew what Murong Yu was thinking. Therefore, he nodded and said, I'll leave first. After I return, I don't want to see Murong Yu get hurt. Otherwise, no matter who the other party is, I won't show mercy. All of you know my character. In the end, the soul puppet left without looking back after spitting out these cold words. Murong Yu knew that Hun Dan could only suppress the evil force in his body on that unique planet. Otherwise, why would he run to that remote place? Why would he stay on that small planet? After Hun Dan left, the three ancestors ordered Hun Shi, arrange a good place for Murong Yu. He's our hero. Don't neglect him. Then, the three of them left. Hun Shi was a little angry. However, he couldn't get a word in edgewise. In the end, he arranged for Murong Yu to stay near his palace. This way, he could take care of Murong Yu immediately. However, after the arrangements were made, there were people outside monitoring every movement. It was obvious that this was an order from the three ancestors. Murong Yu didn't have any objections to this. These people didn't know about Hichu Luoshu's secret. Did they think that by imprisoning him here, he wouldn't be able to leave the Soul Tribe's territory? As long as he wanted to, he could leave at any time. As for the three ancestors of the Soul Tribe, who wanted to burn the bridge after crossing the river and kill the donkey after it had outlived its usefulness, they would be in for it in the future. Murong Yu's heart was already filled with killing intent towards the three ancestors. However, they were Daolord realm experts in the end, and they weren't existences that Murong Yu could go against right now. If he wanted to kill them, then he had to possess a combat strength at the Daolord realm. So, he'd charged into Hichu Luoshu at the first possible moment after Hun Shi arranged a place for him to stay. He'd devoured Hun Xian's soul because of the violet light. Hun Xian was a Daolord, so even if he'd been heavily injured, but the soul energy contained within his soul was still rather terrifying. After he devoured Hun Xian's soul, Morong Yu's soul, which was at the peak of the creation realm, was about to break through on the spot. However, he'd suppressed it. However, he was unable to suppress it in the end. He was about to break through. However, the soul territory wasn't a good place to break through, and only Hichu Luoshu was the safest place. Chapter 2184. Bang! Hun Xian's soul was too powerful, and the soul energy it contained was extremely terrifying. The instant Morong Yu entered the Hichu Luoshu, his soul broke through uncontrollably and broke through to the first level of the heaven realm. Moreover, Hun Xian's soul wasn't just powerful in terms of soul energy, but in other aspects as well. So, after breaking through Morong Yu's soul realm, his cultivation and body broke through successively as well, and they both broke through to the first level of the heaven realm. However, this was just the beginning. Under the impact of the terrifying energy, Morong Yu's soul, cultivation, and body broke through successively, and he charged to the third level of the heaven realm in one go. Of course, if Morong Yu was willing, Hun Xian's soul could even push his cultivation to the peak of the heaven realm, and he could even charge into the true self realm without any pressure. However, Hun Xian had forcefully suppressed it. Even though breaking through with the help of external forces was quick, it didn't mean that the higher one rose, the better it was. Moderation. The third level of the heaven realm was more suitable for Morong Yu. Of course, Hun Xian's soul energy didn't vanish after it was suppressed. Instead, it existed in his soul, cultivation, and body. In the future, this energy would be released slowly, and it would allow Morong Yu to achieve twice the result with half the effort in his cultivation. When he was at the peak of the creation realm, Morong Yu's combat strength had already reached the peak of the true self realm. At this moment, after breaking through successively, his combat strength had taken a huge leap forward as well. The third level of the selfless realm, and this was only his current combat strength. After all, after breaking through, Morong Yu's soul and strength could fuse with even more vortexes. The more vortexes there were, the more terrifying his lethality would be. At that time, his combat strength might directly approach the fourth level of the selfless realm, and it might even surpass the fourth level to reach the fifth or sixth level. Most importantly, Hun Xian's powerful soul at the Downlord realm was endlessly transmitting energy to him. It wouldn't be long before Morong Yu broke through to the true self realm. Once he broke through to the true self realm, then he would possess the terrifying combat strength of the initial Dao realm. At that time, even if he wouldn't be able to attain the Downlord realm or Downlord realm, he would at least be a Grand Dao realm expert. In front of a great Dao realm cultivator, he had the right to speak. After checking his soul space, Morong Yu discovered that the fourth soul sphere had already been condensed. Others can only condense a single soul sphere, and it's the same even for Downlords. Could it be that condensing multiple soul balls was the mark of the chaotic race? What is the limit of the soul orb? Morong Yu could not help but recall Hun Xian's words before he died. He had been curious about Hun Xian's words for a long time. It was just that he didn't have the time to read Hun Xian's memories. Even though Hun Xian had been completely killed by the purple light, he still didn't have the time to do so. However, his memories had already fused with Morong Yu's memories. It was just that Morong Yu didn't have the time to check. Now that his cultivation had come to an end, he had time to look through Hun Xian's memories. With a thought, he gathered Hun Xian's memories. After removing some unimportant memories, the things that Morong Yu wanted to know appeared in front of him. According to legend, the chaotic race was the strongest race in the universe. Even though there were very few members of the chaotic race, and there were no more than 10,000 of them at their peak. However, the combat strength of every single member of the chaotic race was rather terrifying. No one at the same realm of cultivation was a match for the chaotic race. When the chaotic race still existed, they were the masters of the universe, and they firmly controlled everything in the universe. No one could shake their position. Just 10,000 of them can control the entire universe? Even powerful powers that are numerous like the grains of sand in the Ganges can only lower their heads before the chaotic race. Murong Yu's eyes flickered with traces of bright light, and he was extremely shocked. At the same time, he sensed how strong the chaotic race was. The weakest amongst them was at the initial Tao realm, and most of them were at the Taolord realm. The strongest amongst them were the strongest existences in the universe at the Taolord realm. The Taolord realm? Murong Yu's heart shook. The chaotic race once had a Taolord realm expert? Could it be that he was the legendary chaos controller? If that was the case, it was normal for the chaotic race to become the strongest force in the universe. However, how could a Taolord realm expert fall? The chaos controller could already control the endless chaos and had the same lifespan as the chaos. How could he fall? As for being killed? That was even more impossible. In the universe, who could be a match for the chaos controller? Could it be that the Taolord realm was not the legendary chaos controller? Was the chaos controller above the Taolord realm? All sorts of doubts flashed through Murong Yu's mind, and he continued to read on. There were very few members of the chaotic race, even though they were the strongest race in the world. However, most people really did not know about the existence of the chaotic race. This was because the chaotic race had two representatives in the universe, the Soul Race and the Great Void Race. The Great Void Race? Murong Yu's eyes flashed with confusion because he had never heard of the Great Void Race. However, he soon felt relieved. Before this, he had never heard of the Soul Race, okay? The chaotic race never appeared. Everything was handled by the Soul Race and the Great Void Race. Therefore, the world only knew that the Soul Race and the Great Void Race were very powerful. Some powerful people knew that these two races were the representatives of the chaotic race. However, only a few people knew that these two races were not the representatives of the chaotic race, but the slaves of the chaotic race. Murong Yu couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air. He did not know much about the Great Void Race. However, he knew quite a bit about the Soul Race. That was an extremely terrifying and powerful race. Although only 3 Taolords had appeared in the Soul Race when they were in chaos. However, Murong Yu knew that the Soul Race did not only have 3 Taolords. Apart from the Taolords, there were also quite a number of Taolords and Taolords. Although there were only 3 territories in the original Soul Race territory. However, their combat strength was definitely stronger than the human race and even the demon race. If the Soul Race was like this, then the Great Void Race, which was also one of the slave races of the chaotic race, would at least be at the same level as the Soul Race. If the two slave races were so powerful, one could imagine how terrifying the chaotic race was. However, the chaotic race was so powerful. How did they decline and even get wiped out? Murong Yu continued to look through Hun Xian's memories. However, unfortunately, Hun Xian did not know about the fall of the chaotic race. He only knew that the master of the Soul Race had suddenly vanished overnight. Everything was gone, but the people had changed. In the beginning, the Soul Race did not know that the chaotic race had been wiped out. However, they did not receive any orders from the chaotic race for a long time. After a long time had passed, they were finally sure that something had happened to the chaotic race. The Soul Race, who had been under the chaotic race for a long time, was naturally very excited and immediately became independent. From then on, they were no longer slaves of the chaotic race. After becoming independent, the Soul Race had never investigated why the chaotic race had disappeared. Murong Yu's expression was slightly gloomy. These Soul Race are really bastards. They did nothing. You have to know that everything they have was given to them by the chaotic race. For some reason, Murong Yu was suddenly furious. The Soul Race was originally a small race. However, they had become one of the top races in the universe with the help of the chaotic race. However, the Soul Race did not show any gratitude. They were simply ingrates. This was why Murong Yu was furious. From Hun Xian's memory, Murong Yu knew. Every member of the chaotic race was a soul cultivator. At the same time, they also cultivated their physical body and ordinary cultivation. Their combined strength was not something that the soul race could compare with. Moreover, every member of the chaotic race could cultivate multiple soul balls. The more soul balls, the greater their potential and the greater their future achievements. The characteristics of the chaotic race were exactly the same as Murong Yu's. Could it be that I am really a member of the chaotic race? Murong Yu started to have doubts in his heart. However, he was not even one reincarnation cycle old. However, the chaotic race had been wiped out one reincarnation cycle ago. Then, he could not possibly be a member of the chaotic race. However, if he was not a member of the chaotic race, then why did he have the characteristics of the chaotic race? Soul Devourer Great? This is a technique that the chaotic race must cultivate? The purpose is to control, frighten, and even devour the soul race? Murong Yu suddenly saw the introduction of the soul race's forbidden technique. Soul-devouring technique? One of the functions of this technique was to devour souls. Just like how Hun Xian devoured other members of the soul race who cultivated the forbidden technique. However, when they were in the chaotic race, every member of the soul race had to cultivate this technique. However, the soul race could not devour other people's souls. Only the chaotic race, who also cultivated the forbidden technique, could do so. However, from Hun Xian's memory, the chaotic race rarely relied on devouring the souls of the soul race to continuously increase their strength. Only those who committed a capital crime would have their souls devoured by the chaotic race. Usually, this technique was only used to frighten and control the soul race. After the chaotic race was wiped out, the soul race completely destroyed this technique, although it would cause the person involved to be severely injured. After all, they were no longer controlled by others. Moreover, this technique was sealed up by the soul race. Later, Hun Xian thought of a way to get his hands on it. In the end, the soul race was almost wiped out. Since the chaotic race has a technique to frighten the soul race, they should also have a technique to frighten the void race. If that's the case, wouldn't I be able to frighten the soul race by cultivating the forbidden technique? That's not right. Now, basically no one in the soul race cultivates the forbidden technique. They are not controlled at all. Moreover, if they know that I cultivate the forbidden technique, I'm afraid I'll be targeted by all. Murong Yu thought in his heart. However, he could not help but check on soul-devouring technique. Soul-devouring technique was here. There were simply too many similarities between him and the primal chaos race. Murong Yu always felt that he had some sort of connection with them. Perhaps he was really the orphan of the chaotic race? Even if he was not, he must have some connection with the chaotic race. If the soul race and the void race knew about it, he would have two more terrifying enemies out of nowhere. Chapter 2185. Why did such a powerful race like the chaotic race suddenly go extinct? Since the soul race had appeared, then what about the chaotic race's token, the great void race? Was he a member of the chaotic race? Many questions surged in Murong Yu's mind, but these questions were unanswered for the time being. Murong Yu naturally wouldn't waste his time trying to figure out something he couldn't solve. Therefore, he decided to cultivate soul-devouring great law. The soul-devouring great technique didn't look complicated. Although this was a taboo-level technique, it was only a technique used by the chaotic race to control the soul race. If the entire soul race wanted to successfully cultivate it, then the technique couldn't be too profound. Otherwise, many soul race people wouldn't be able to cultivate it. Therefore, soul-devouring great? For someone of Murong Yu's level of comprehension, law was actually quite simple. After reading it once, Murong Yu had already comprehended it. After reading it a few more times, Murong Yu had completely comprehended it. After comprehending it, it was naturally time to cultivate it. After cultivating it, Morong Yu was surprised to find that this technique seemed to be tailor-made for him and was very suitable for him. Moreover, his cultivation had the effect of getting twice the result with half the effort. This confirmed Morong Yu's guess. Even if he's not a member of the chaotic race, he has a great relationship with them. Didn't they say that Morong Yu could only cultivate the chaotic celestial records? Why could he cultivate soul-devouring great law? This was indeed the case, but soul-devouring great? Strictly speaking, law wasn't a cultivation technique, but a battle skill. Even if it was a cultivation technique, it wasn't the main cultivation technique. After successfully cultivating it, it only increased Morong Yu's strength, but it couldn't directly increase Morong Yu's cultivation and realm. At best, it was just a supplementary cultivation method. One day, in just a single day, Morong Yu had already succeeded in cultivating it. However, after successfully cultivating it, Morong Yu didn't change much. However, at this moment, his originally transparent and colorless soul and the 4 soul balls were emitting a faint purple light. The faint purple light enveloped Morong Yu's entire soul, and even Morong Yu's main soul in his soul space. It looked extremely noble. What exactly was the purple light? Morong Yu was puzzled. This was because he could clearly sense that although the purple light did not seem to have any effect, it was actually quite powerful. However, the depths of the purple light contained an extremely terrifying power. This was clearly the purple light that had blasted Hun Xin into smithereens. However, when Morong Yu tried, he was unable to use the purple light. However, when he attacked, his soul power carried traces of soul light. However, Morong Yu didn't know for the time being whether or not it had increased his spiritual power. Time acceleration. Morong Yu did not return to the soul race. Instead, he activated Hichu Luoshu's time acceleration function. With the breakthrough in his realm, Morong Yu's combat power had increased by a lot. However, Morong Yu wanted to reach a higher level. Of course, he didn't want to continue increasing his realm. Instead, he wanted to increase his power and soul vortex. The more vortexes he fused with his soul power, the more terrifying his combat power would be. This was the only way to increase one's combat strength without increasing one's realm. Time passed quickly. Morong Yu continued to fuse his power and soul vortexes. Due to the support of Hun Xion's enormous soul, Morong Yu had successfully fused 10,000 soul vortexes in just one era. A total of 10,000 soul vortexes. Originally, his soul realm had only reached the 3rd level of the sky human realm. However, after fusing 10,000 soul vortexes, his soul's lethality had increased tremendously, reaching the level of selfless realm. This was quite terrifying. One should know that the soul race was stronger than the average cultivator. However, their combat power was only 1 or 2 realms higher than the average cultivator. The more heaven-defying ones were only 3 or 4 realms higher. For example, the soul race's number 1 genius, Huning, could only surpass 1 major realm. However, what if both sides were soul race members? This kind of advantage was almost non-existent. At the same realm, the soul race cultivator's combat power was almost the same. However, Morong Yu was quite heaven-defying. He was only at the 3rd level of the sky human realm, but he was already comparable to a selfless realm soul race cultivator. With this combat power, even if he encountered a mid-level selfless realm or even a high-level non-soul race expert, he still had the power to kill them. Moreover, this was only his soul's combat power. If combined with his cultivation and physical body, his combat power would be even more terrifying. Even if he wasn't invincible under the Great Tao realm, he wouldn't be far off. If his power could also fuse 10,000 vortexes, reaching the combat power of the initial Tao realm would definitely not be a problem. After an era, Morong Yu only managed to fuse 10,000 soul vortexes. This was also due to Hun Xion's powerful soul. However, Relying on his tenacious willpower, Murong Yu only used half an era's time to already fuse 10,000 energy vortexes. After all, compared to the soul, although fusing soul vortexes also had a certain degree of danger, compared to the danger of fusing soul vortexes, it was completely not worth mentioning. In fact, as long as it was guaranteed that his physical body would not be completely destroyed, Murong Yu could fuse as much as he wanted, the combat power of the initial Tao realm. After fusing 10,000 soul vortexes and cultivation power, Murong Yu felt that his combat power had already reached the initial Tao realm. The sky-human realm had the combat power of the initial Tao realm? A full 3 major realms difference. This horror was probably the most heaven-defying existence in history, right? At least, Murong Yu did not see an existence more heaven-defying than him in Hun Xian's memories. In reality, having combat power that surpassed one's own by a major realm was already quite heaven-defying. This combat power was more suitable for pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Murong Yu chuckled, feeling quite satisfied. Therefore, after cultivating some other combat skills, he left the Hichu Luoshu. 1.5 years had passed in the Hichu Luoshu, but only 1.5 years had passed in the outside world. After Murong Yu came out, he still saw that there were soul tribe cultivators outside monitoring him. Immediately, he could not help but laugh coldly. As long as he reached the peak of the selfless realm, he could suppress the 3 soul tribe ancestors. He had saved the entire soul tribe, but those 3 ingrates had turned their backs on him. This already made Murong Yu want to kill them. If he had the strength, he did not rule out the possibility of killing them. Moreover, the soul tribe was originally the slaves of the chaotic tribe. They could only submit. What right did they have to control him? This thought suddenly flashed through Murong Yu's mind, and then he was shocked. Since when did he consider himself a member of the chaotic tribe? This was not good. Could it be that he had cultivated the great soul devourer? Relationship with the law? Murong Yu narrowed his eyes slightly. Brother Murong. At this moment, Han Ming's voice came from outside the manor. Then, Han Ming walked quickly to Murong Yu. Swoosh. However, the moment Han Ming saw Murong Yu, his face turned pale, and there was fear in the depths of his eyes. It was as if there was something about Murong Yu that made him afraid. Murong Yu was the first to notice Han Ming's abnormality. However, he didn't notice anything different about himself. Han Ming, what's wrong? Murong Yu could not help but take a step forward. Thud. 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 Murong Yu only took a step forward, but Han Ming took a few steps back. At the same time, he said in a panic, Brother Murong, don't come over. Murong Yu was puzzled, but he still paused in the end. Han Ming took a deep breath and tried his best to convince himself. After a while, he looked at Murong Yu and said with a frightened expression, Big Brother Murong, I don't know why, but when I see you, or even when I'm just standing near you, I feel a huge pressure. Murong Yu's face was filled with shock. This pressure comes from the soul. Your body seems to be emitting a terrifying aura that can suppress my soul. Under this aura, my soul even has a feeling of wanting to submit. Han Ming slowly explained the reason for this change. Murong Yu was shocked. Han Ming continued, This feeling is similar to what happened a year ago. At that time, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted, and almost all of us from the soul tribe fell to our knees. He was like a superior, and I didn't even have the heart to resist. I could only submit to him. When he said this, Han Ming couldn't help but show a look of fear. Murong Yu found it very strange. He didn't know that he was the one who caused that, so he asked. Han Ming knew that Murong Yu was in a life and death situation at the time, so he didn't know about this. So he explained in detail. Purple light. It's because of that mysterious purple light. That purple light didn't just destroy Hun Xian's soul, it also suppressed most of the soul tribe cultivators. Now that Soul Cry had such a reaction, it should be because of the purple light emitted from his soul. Murong Yu couldn't help but think of a part of Hun Xian's memory. When the Soul Tribe was still the slaves of the primal chaos, no matter what realm the Soul Tribe cultivators were at, when they saw the primal chaos, no matter how weak they would naturally emit an aura that suppressed the souls of the Soul Tribe cultivators. The aura of a superior being. It was innate. When he thought of this, Murong Yu's face turned gloomy. If Hun Xian knew this, then the old Soul Tribe cultivators must know as well. If they connected him to the fact that he was a member of the primal chaos, wouldn't they immediately kill him? I have to think of a way to restrain that purple light. Murong Yu thought to himself, already trying to restrain the purple light. Whoosh! Just as Murong Yu was about to restrain the purple light, Han Ming felt the pressure on his body loosen. The enormous pressure that was suppressing his body instantly disappeared without a trace. At this moment, the purple light from Murong Yu's soul was still there, but it didn't have the power to suppress the Soul Tribe cultivators. He'd already retracted it. Chapter 2186. Murong Yu immediately noticed this change, and he couldn't help but feel delighted. If he suddenly released the aura of a superior when fighting against a member of the Hun race, then wouldn't he be able to suppress his opponent until they lost their minds? Moreover, even the slightest mistake during a battle could turn the tide of the battle. Moreover, Murong Yu's aura could even suppress a Tao Lord. To a Hun race cultivator, it was definitely much more effective than the Heavenly King Grand Sage art. Hun Ming heaved a sigh of relief, but he still looked at Murong Yu with lingering fear in his eyes. He really couldn't figure out why Murong Yu had such an aura that made him feel uneasy. Before Murong Yu, he was like Murong Yu's servant. Little Ming, I hope you can keep this a secret. Don't tell anyone. Murong Yu said solemnly to Murong Yu. If this matter were to spread, it would definitely shock the entire Hun race, and it was very likely that Murong Yu would be killed because of it. Hun Ming knew how terrifying this matter was, so he nodded fiercely. Right, Hun Ming, why are you here? Murong Yu couldn't help but ask. In the beginning, Hun Ming seemed to have come looking for him for something. However, after that incident, Hun Ming seemed to have forgotten his purpose for coming here. Right, my father told me to come look for you. He said that the three ancestors want to see you, and it seems like they want to let you go? Hun Ming slapped his head and reacted. A cold light flashed through Murong Yu's eyes. He didn't think like Hun Ming. If they let him go so easily, then he wouldn't be an ungrateful person. Moreover, he had a feeling that the three ancestors of the Hun race were going to attack him. How should he deal with this? If they saw his 4 soul balls, they might just kill him. Should he just leave? If Murong Yu wanted to leave, he could teleport away directly. No one could stop him. However, if that was the case, Murong Yu couldn't guarantee that the 3 crazy ancestors of the soul race wouldn't attack Shenzhen and destroy Shenzhen. Even though Shenzhen now had 61 great Dao realm experts, including him, Luo Yunyang was still a great Dao realm expert. However, the strongest of them were only Dao Lords. They weren't a match for the Spiritas at all. In fact, they could not even withstand a single blow. Murong Yu couldn't help but feel a little depressed. There was strength in numbers, but sometimes having a big family was a burden. If it was just him alone, he could do whatever he wanted without any worries at all. Let's go see what those 3 ingrates are up to. Murong Yu left the manor with Soulcry. After he left the manor, the Soul Clan experts hiding outside the manor and monitoring Murong Yu began to move as well. They were all selfless realm cultivators. These people were the lackeys of the 3 patriarchs. Murong Yu sneered in his heart. If this was any other place, he might have wiped them all out with one 10,000-layered soul wave. At this moment, Murong Yu's 10,000-layered soul waves could already unleash 3,000-layered attack. With Murong Yu's selfless realm soul attack, it could deal 3,000 layers of damage. How could these selfless realm cultivators block it? Soulcry seemed to think that Murong Yu was about to regain his freedom, so he was very excited along the way. Seeing this, Morong Yu didn't want to ruin his mood. He didn't want to hurt this innocent child. In the end, Soulcry brought Morong Yu to a large hall and stopped. The 3 ancestors of the soul race should be inside. Morong Yu didn't hesitate. He pushed open the door and walked in. Whoosh! As soon as he opened the door, 4 extremely powerful gazes shot onto him. At this moment, all the hairs on Morong Yu's body stood on end. The strength of these 4 people was too terrifying. Just a glance at him made him feel as if he was facing a great enemy, and he even felt suffocated. They should be the 3 Downlord Realm ancestors of the soul race. But why is there one more person? Morong Yu looked over fearlessly. He noticed that there were 4 people sitting in the hall. Besides the 3 ancestors, there was another old man who emanated a similarly powerful aura that was on par with the other 3. This person should be one of the Downlord Realm ancestors of the soul race, right? Morong Yu pondered in his heart as he stepped forward. Morong Yu greets the 4 ancestors. Morong Yu cupped his fists and said to the 4 ancestors. However, there was no respect on his face at all. These are ingrates. Morong Yu wished for nothing more than to beat them to death with a single punch. So, why did he attack them? Morong Yu couldn't even be bothered to put on an act when facing people he disliked. You're Morong Yu? The Morong Yu who devoured Hun Xian's soul? Morong Yu hadn't finished speaking when the ancestor of the soul race that he'd met for the first time spoke coldly. Morong Yu was furious. Do you think that I can devour Hun Xian's soul with my current cultivation? Why don't you find a creation realm cultivator and try devouring Hun Xian's soul? The expressions of the 4 ancestors turned slightly gloomy when they heard this. It was even to the extent that Morong Yu sensed a wisp of ghastly killing intent flash through the depths of the eyes of the ancestor who'd questioned him. They aroused killing intent towards me? This really is a trap. The flames of rage in Morong Yu's heart surged, and he was practically on the verge of slamming the door and leaving. However, would he be able to escape from under their noses? The answer was naturally no. He couldn't escape at all right? In that case, he could only take things one step at a time. He'd deal with whatever came his way. That's not impossible. Hun Xian's soul was already severely injured at the time. The power that it contained was probably less than 1/10,000th of its peak power. With your abilities, you could have completely devoured his soul, another ancestor said in a low voice at this moment. The flames of rage in Morong Yu's heart surged. However, he didn't say anything. He merely looked coldly at these 4 ingrate. Morong Yu, you're a great contributor to our soul race. We're not treating you unfairly. However, as an elder of our soul race, Hun Xian's memories contain many of our soul race's memories. There are some memories that you can't know at your current cultivation level. Furthermore, if you're traveling outside and someone accidentally reads your memories and finds out about the soul race's secrets, wouldn't that be harming the soul race? That's why we're doing this for your own good. Morong Yu laughed coldly in his heart. These old fogies could say whatever they wanted. In any case, the mouths belonged to them. However, making you stay in the soul race forever isn't a solution. So, for the sake of resolving this matter, we've decided to take a look at your memories. If you really haven't devoured Hun Xian's memories, then you'll be able to regain your freedom. However, if you've really devoured Hun Xian's soul, then we'll take away all the memories related to Hun Xian. Morong Yu's face was extremely gloomy. These fellows probably don't just have this objective, right? He knew about the soul devourer technique. It was a taboo technique of the soul race, and even Downlords weren't able to come into contact with it. If it was in the past, then perhaps they wouldn't have any thoughts about this taboo technique. However, after witnessing Hun Xian, they would really be surprised if they still didn't have any thoughts about it. Even Hun Xian could easily advance to the peak of the Downlord realm, so what about them? Wouldn't they be able to directly charge into the legendary Downlord realm? The desire for strength was something that every single cultivator pursued. These ancestors of the soul race were no exception. Some people wouldn't disregard everything while pursuing formidable strength, just like Hun Xian. On the other hand, these four ancestors of the soul race were probably just like Hun Xian. Moreover, even if it wasn't because of the taboo technique, it was impossible for Murong Yu to allow them to search his soul or even read it. Would he even be able to survive if they found out about his memories? Could it be that we're really going to shed all pretenses today? Murong Yu was rather displeased in his heart. He was already thinking about all sorts of methods to escape. However, no matter what cultivation technique he possessed, it was useless when facing four Dao Lords. Murong Yu, why aren't you opening up your soul? The ancestor of the soul race that Murong Yu had met for the first time suddenly shouted explosively. At the same time, an extremely enormous pressure swept over like a torrent. Why? Murong Yu stood towering on the spot, and his eyes were blazing with flames as he gazed at the ancestor of the soul race. However, to his surprise, he was able to sense the surging pressure emanated by the ancestor of the soul race. However, he didn't feel any discomfort at all. It was even to the extent that he didn't feel any pressure at all. What's going on? Could it be because of the violet light again? I'm directly immune to the pressure of the experts of the soul race? Or perhaps I'm directly immune to the pressure of the cultivators of the other races as well. If it's like that, then it's too heaven-defying. The ancestor of the soul race couldn't help but be surprised when he noticed that Murong Yu hadn't been forced to kneel on the ground by his pressure. However, he immediately became furious. Why? Because you're a member of the soul race, and because I'm the ancestor of the soul race. I can order you around or even kill you. Murong Yu was extremely furious. Someone like you can become the ancestor of the soul race? It wouldn't take a few years for the soul race to fall into complete decline with someone like you. You bunch of ingrates. Could it be that you're going to treat a great contributor to the soul race like this? If it wasn't for me, all of you would have been devoured by Hun Xian a long time ago. I tried my best to turn the situation around, yet not only are all of you not grateful to me, you actually intend to kill me? Is this how the soul race does things? Burning bridges after crossing the river? Getting rid of the donkey once it's no longer useful? Murong Yu's rage soared to the heavens. Without any more scruples, he started scolding at the four soul race old ancestors. The faces of the four old ancestors were steely green as their auras went berserk. Their killing intent soared, and they were about to strike at Murong Yu directly. However, Murong Yu was going all out as well as he scolded these four ingrates madly. He scolded so much that the four old ancestors could barely hold back their urge to spit out blood and die. Little B** starred, I'm going to kill you. Finally, one of the old ancestors exploded. With a roar, he stretched out his hand and slapped out at Murong Yu. If Murong Yu were to be struck by that slap, he would definitely die. Chapter 2187. Clap clap clap. Just as the Soul Clan's patriarch reached out his hand to slap Murong Yu, a series of claps came from outside the hall. At the same time, a figure appeared beside Murong Yu out of thin air. Murong Yu, well said. A familiar voice rang in Murong Yu's ears. At this moment, the Soul Clan's patriarch's attack had already landed. Both Murong Yu and the person who came were enveloped by his palm. It was obvious that the Soul Clan's patriarch wanted to kill everyone who came. In fact, he did not even have the time to see who it was before he attacked. One could imagine how intense his desire to kill Murong Yu was. The Soul Clan's patriarch's attack was about to land. This slap could turn Murong Yu into dust. He would not be able to resist at all. However, Murong Yu relaxed at this moment. In fact, he even revealed a smile on his face. This was because he already knew who the person who came was. Boom. Seeing that the other party wanted to kill him as well, the anger in the person's heart surged. Without saying a word, he directly threw a punch over. Boom! After a loud, dull sound, the person stood still on the spot. However, his opponent, the old ancestor of the Soul Clan, was forced to take over a dozen steps back. He only came to a stop after breaking the floor of the hall. At this moment, the other 3 Soul Clan's patriarchs stood up from their seat. Each of them looked at the person who came with anger. Hundan, what's the meaning of this? The person who came was Hundan, the number 1 genius of the Soul Clan. It was also because of Hundan that Morong Yu could relax. Otherwise, he did not know what would happen to him. Hundan looked at the 4 Soul Clan's patriarchs furiously. I should be asking you this. What's the meaning of this? Morong Yu saved our entire Soul Clan and prevented us from being exterminated. How dare you treat him like this? Hundan was really angry. This time, if he had not arrived in time, Morong Yu would have been killed. If Morong Yu was killed, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. Moreover, he never thought that these ancestors would be so shameless as to want to kill Morong Yu. We didn't do anything. We just wanted to check his memories. If he hadn't read Hun Xian's memories and learned the secrets of the soul race, we wouldn't have done anything to him. We're not trying to harm him. We're just doing it for the good of the Soul Clan. An ancestor of the Soul Clan said in a deep voice while looking at Huning. Morong Yu sneered and said, I'm afraid it's not just that, right? Although he didn't know what secrets Hun Xian knew about the soul race, he didn't know what secrets Hun Xian knew. But you didn't do it to protect the secret of the soul race. You just want to obtain the taboo cultivation technique. When Morong Yu said the words taboo cultivation method, the 4 Spirita's old ancestors' expressions changed. Hundan, who had been paying attention to the 4 of them, looked even uglier. Although the 4 great ancestors had not confirmed or denied Morong Yu's words, their actions had betrayed their true thoughts. The taboo cultivation method was the taboo of the Soul Clan. No one was allowed to cultivate it. Moreover, after the incident with Hun Xian, Hundan clearly understood the terror of the taboo cultivation method. The 4 great ancestors were more powerful than Hun Xian. If they were as crazy as Hun Xian, who could stop them? Then, wouldn't the Soul Clan be exterminated? We can't let them obtain the taboo cultivation method. Morong Yu, I'll protect him. Hundan's eyes shone brightly. He had made up his mind. He had never allowed the 4 great ancestors to touch Morong Yu. Now, because of the taboo cultivation method, he disdained to protect Morong Yu at all costs. What if Morong Yu had really read Hun Xian's memories? Then, the 4 great ancestors would have obtained the taboo cultivation method. Therefore, before the 4 great ancestors could react, Hundan had already taken a step forward and stood in front of Morong Yu. He shielded Morong Yu behind him as he stared coldly at the 4 great ancestors. Morong Yu, don't you dare slander us! How dare you slander our great ancestors? Morong Yu, you have no respect for your elders. You really deserve to die. You have no manners. Today I'll teach you a lesson. The 4 great ancestors scolded Morong Yu. Although they said different things, they all denied Morong Yu's statement. They could not admit it. Otherwise, the number 1 genius of the Soul Clan would not be easy to talk to. Boom! As they spoke, the 4 great ancestors attacked at the same time. Each of them reached out their hands and avoided Hundan. They went straight for Morong Yu. In Hundan's eyes, the 4 old ancestors' actions further proved that they were guilty. Morong Yu was right. So, he roared furiously and slapped his palms forward as well. He was going against the 4 great ancestors of the Soul Clan by himself. Bang! 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 Hundan's figure shook slightly, and he took 3 steps back repeatedly in the end before he was able to stabilize himself. Even though Hundan was strong, the 4 great ancestors of the Soul Clan weren't weak, and their strengths were formidable as well. Moreover, it was 4 against 1, so there was a limit to Hundan's strength. But in reality, it was still Hundan who had the upper hand. He'd merely taken 3 steps back, but he'd stabilized himself after 3 steps. On the other hand, his opponents, the 4 great ancestors of the Soul Clan, had taken over 10 steps back at the same time. However, some had only taken 10 steps back, while others had taken 17 or 18 steps back. The gap between their strengths was very easy to discern. After they stabilized themselves, all of them gazed at Hundan with astonishment. Even though their strengths weren't at the top of the Dowlord realm, and they weren't amongst the strongest ancestors of the Soul Clan. However, their strengths couldn't be considered to be weak amongst Dowlord realm cultivators. Yet now, their joint forces had been blasted back by a single move from Hundan? Exactly how terrifying was this number 1 genius of the Soul Clan? He was at least 2 realms stronger than them. Otherwise, it was utterly impossible for him to possess such formidable combat strength. Moreover, Hundan was standing on the spot in a composed manner at this moment, and he seemed to have not exerted his full strength. Murong Yu's eyes flickered with traces of a cold glow as he stood behind Hundan. The 4 great ancestors of the Soul Clan hadn't noticed it, but he'd noticed it. Hundan's body was still coiled with the evil energy when he appeared. Over a year of time wasn't sufficient for him to suppress the evil energy within his body. Hundan had probably rushed over to rescue Murong Yu after hastily suppressing the evil energy within his body. When he thought up to here, Murong Yu was slightly moved. However, the evil energy within Hundan's body had become even more restless after Hundan attacked just now. The evil energy that coiled around his body had strengthened by quite a bit. If this continued, then the evil energy within Hundan's body would completely gain the upper hand. At that time, Hundan would be controlled by the evil energy and become a devil that killed without batting an eyelid. It was precisely because he had to suppress the evil energy at all times that Hundan was unable to utilize his full combat strength. Otherwise, with the strength he used to suppress Hun Xian, he could easily suppress the 4 great ancestors of the Soul Clan. Hundan, we 4 great ancestors represent the will of the entire Soul Clan. Are you going to go against the will of the Soul Clan? Must you stop us? One of the ancestors looked at Hundan furiously. Even though Hundan was the number 1 genius of the Soul Clan, anyone who stood in his way was his enemy. So long as it was an enemy, then it had to be eliminated. So, the ancestor who spoke had already aroused killing intent towards Hundan. All of you can't represent the will of the Soul Clan, because all of you aren't worthy. Hundan laughed coldly. He was thoroughly disappointed in the 4 stubborn patriarchs. If they cultivated a forbidden cultivation technique, then they would definitely become the next Hun Xian. So, Hundan had aroused killing intent towards them. In any case, the Soul Clan didn't just have 4 Dowlord realm ancestors. Even though killing them would cause the Soul Clan's overall strength to decline, eliminating the black sheep was a good thing for the Soul Clan. Hundan has gone against the will of the Soul Clan, and he's a traitor to the Soul Clan. However, out of consideration for the fact that he's rendered meritorious service in saving the Soul Clan, we'll capture and imprison him for now. Everyone, let's attack and suppress Hundan first. One of the ancestors signaled to the other 3 with his eyes. In the next moment, all 4 of them attacked simultaneously. All of you are really stubborn. I'll kill all of you today. Hundan was filled with killing intent as he waved his hand and moved Murong Yu outside the hall, and then he started a battle with the 4 ancestors. Rumble! The battle had just begun, yet the hall was blasted into powder by their terrifying strength. Even if Murong Yu had reacted quickly and swiftly moved away from the hall, but he was still struck by the terrifying aftershock to the point blood sprayed from his mouth. The combat strength of a Dowlord was too terrifying. The 4 ancestors of the Soul Clan clearly intended to suppress Murong Yu and read his memories. Moreover, Hundan was the greatest obstacle to their ability to read Murong Yu's memories. The 4 ancestors who were determined to obtain Hundan had to eliminate him. So, they didn't hold back at all, and every single one of their attacks smashed towards Hun Dan's lethal points. At the same time, they'd even utilized their treasures and origin artifacts, and they ceaselessly smashed them towards Hun Dan under their command. As he watched the battle between the four of them, Chun Shi felt that this was the Soul Clan's territory after all, so they'd intentionally suppress their attacks within a certain area of effect. Otherwise, the entire territory of the Soul Clan would be unable to withstand a single blow and would be razed to the ground. Murong Yu was slightly anxious, because he noticed that the evil energy within his body grew stronger every single time Hun Dan attacked. On the other hand, when the evil energy grew stronger, Hun Dan had to split even more of his strength to suppress it. But in this way, the strength he possessed to deal with the four ancestors would weaken. Moreover, once his strength weakened, he would gradually not be a match for the four ancestors. If such a vicious cycle continued, then Hun Dan would definitely be suppressed in the end. Murong Yu didn't know if the four ancestors would kill Hun Dan, but the four old ancestors would definitely kill him. Should I leave now or what? Murong Yu was instantly conflicted in his heart. If he teleported away, then he believed that Hun Dan would be able to escape the four ancestors' attacks. But what if the four ancestors were overwhelmed by rage and disregarded everything to kill Hun Dan in the end? Chapter 2188. Murong Yu, you go first. Don't worry about me. Just when Murong Yu was in a dilemma, Hun Dan's voice suddenly rang in his ears. Of course, Hun Dan sent a voice transmission directly to Murong Yu's ears. He would not be so stupid as to roar out loud. Murong Yu was still in a dilemma. However, after hearing Hun Dan's words, he instantly made up his mind. He would not leave. If he were to leave, he would leave with Hun Dan. After all, Hun Dan was risking his life to save him. Murong Yu clearly saw that Hun Dan was at a disadvantage after this period of battle. If this were to continue, Hun Dan would definitely be defeated. Of course, there was another possibility. That was, Hun Dan would give up suppressing the evil force in his body and be controlled by the evil force. In that case, Hun Dan could explode with all his combat power and turn the tables. Moreover, Hun Dan, who was controlled by the evil force, might even start a massacre. By then, with Hun Dan's ability, no one from the Soul Clan could stop him. He would be invincible. However, according to Murong Yu's speculation, Hun Dan would rather be defeated than give up suppressing the evil force. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suppressed it for so many years. Hun Dan, get out of the battle quickly. I have a way to bring you out. Murong Yu was anxious and he quickly sent a voice transmission to Hun Dan. Get out of here right now. Don't drag me down. I have a way to leave. Hun Dan was furious and he scolded. However, Murong Yu was not angry because of that. He knew that Hun Dan was doing it for his own good. However, he did not believe that Hun Dan could leave the Soul Clan's territory alone. If he were to leave, the four Laozu would definitely find a scapegoat to vent their anger on. That scapegoat would be Hun Dan. Today, none of you can leave. Stay in the Soul Clan. At that moment, a cold voice suddenly rang in Murong Yu and the others' ears. At the same time, an extremely strong and dangerous aura suddenly shrouded Murong Yu's heart. Even Murong Yu's soul trembled violently. Danger. It was a great danger. Murong Yu was shocked. With a thought, he was about to enter Hichu Luoshu. But in the next moment, he was shocked to find that he could not enter Hichu Luoshu at all. Let alone Hichu Luoshu, he couldn't even move a muscle. He was rooted to the spot. It was only an extremely cold aura that held him in place. A Downlord. Moreover, it's comparable to Hun Dan at its peak. Murong Yu thought. At this moment, a figure stepped out of the void and appeared in Murong Yu's sight. This was a middle-aged man with a pale face and no beard. His face was grave and stern, and his eyes flickered with a soul-stirring cold light. Murong Yu shuddered involuntarily. This middle-aged man was quite dangerous, an extremely dangerous person. It wasn't the icy cold aura that emanated from him that made Murong-yu shudder, and it was the terrifying killing intent contained within the icy cold aura instead. Murong-yu had never encountered such a frightening killing intent before. Merely the killing intent was sufficient to make him shudder. This middle-aged man was simply like a god of slaughter. Since he was able to make an appearance in the territory of the Hun clan, then he was probably an ancestor of the Hun clan. However, Murong-yu had already met 4 Daolord Realm ancestors. If this Daolord Realm ancestor and Hundan were included, then wouldn't the Hun clan possess 6 Daolord Realm ancestors? Exactly how many Daolord Realm ancestors does the Hun clan possess? Their strength is truly too terrifying. Ancestor Hun-e. The 4 ancestors who were in battle with Hundan immediately stopped fighting when they saw the middle-aged man, and it was even to the extent that they retreated explosively and pulled apart the distance between them and Hundan. On the other hand, Hundan didn't continue attacking. He bowed to Ancestor Hun-e instead. It seemed like Ancestor Hun-e possessed a very high status in the Hun clan. Even the 4 ancestors had respectful expressions on their faces. Hundan, do you know your crimes? Ancestor Hun-e nodded lightly to the 4 ancestors, and then he gazed at Hundan and spoke coldly. A wisp of rage flashed through the depths of Hundan's eyes. However, he didn't flare up because this obviously showed how high Ancestor Hun-ye's status in the Hun clan was. Hundan doesn't think he's guilty. Moreover, Murong-yu has rendered meritorious service to our Hun clan, so he shouldn't suffer such humiliating treatment. Hundan was the #1 genius of the Hun clan, so he naturally had his own pride. So, even if he really respected Ancestor Hun-e, he still expressed his stand in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. A wisp of ghastly killing intent flashed through Ancestor Hun-ye's eyes, and it caused the hairs on Murong-yu's body to stand on end. Hundan, how dare you? Ancestor Hun-e was furious. At the same time, he took a step forward and slapped his palm at Hundan. Hundan was extremely furious. He roared loudly and smashed his fist forward. Boom! After an earth-shattering explosion, Hundan was directly sent flying. In the end, he spat out a large mouthful of blood with a pft sound. Murong-yu clearly saw that the evil power on Hundan's body was becoming more active and dense. If Hundan continued, he would lose control. However, Murong-yu wasn't worried about Hundan's loss of control. Instead, he was worried about the strength of this Ancestor Hun-e. Originally, the 4 Ancestor Hundan was at a disadvantage when they joined forces. However, this Ancestor Hundan was severely injured the moment he attacked. His strength was too terrifying. Hundan was furious and wanted to get up again. However, Ancestor Hun-e slapped him again. Therefore, under Murong-yu's furious gaze, Hundan was directly suppressed. Ancestor Hun-e glanced at the other 4 Ancestor Hundan and said coldly, "Throw him on the cliff of reflection. Ask him to come out when he's made up his mind." Yes, Ancestor Hun-e. The 4 Ancestor Hun-e didn't dare to disobey Ancestor Hun-e at all. Murong-yu didn't know Ancestor Hun-ye's background. However, they were very clearly aware of it. Ancestor Hun-e was absolutely like a god of slaughter. It wasn't just to outsiders, it was even to members of the clan as well. If they got on his bad side and were killed by him, they wouldn't even know how they died. It was the same even if one was an ancestor at the Daolord realm. Therefore, the 4 ancestors took Hundan and left in a submissive manner. However, the reluctant gazes they shot at Murong-yu before they left caused Ancestor Hun-e to feel displeased. When they noticed that Ancestor Hun-e was displeased, the 4 of them didn't even dare say a word and left swiftly. After they vanished from his field of vision, Ancestor Hun-e took a step forward and vanished on the spot. Of course, Murong-yu wasn't left behind. When he appeared once more, Murong-yu noticed that he'd arrived at a gloomy and cold hall. The hall was completely empty, and there was only a gloomy and cold aura within it. It was similar to Ancestor Hun Yi's aura. This was probably Ancestor Hun Yi's hall. Murong Yu, right? I'm aware of what happened to you. You've rendered great service to the Hun clan, so I ought to reward you. However, even though you've saved the Hun clan, the experts of the Hun clan fought each other because of you, and it almost caused the experts of the Hun clan to perish. That's enough to make up for your crimes. When he spoke up to here, Ancestor Hun Yi frowned and pondered deeply for a moment before he continued. How about this? I won't cripple your cultivation, and I just have to wipe away your memories of the Hun clan. You'll be able to regain your freedom. Murong Yu's heart was filled with rage. He wanted to curse old Ancestor Hun Yi if he could, that is. His voice hadn't finished resounding through the air when Murong Yu sensed an extremely formidable strand of soul energy pierce into the space within his soul. Ancestor Hun Yi had actually attacked. The flames of rage in Murong Yu's heart were simply monstrous. However, right when Murong Yu thought that Ancestor Hun Yi intended to read his memories, his soul energy had stopped moving forward. Murong Yu clearly noticed the shock on Ancestor Hun Yi's face. Shock. Disbelief. After that, it swiftly transformed into pleasant surprise. I'm finished. Murong Yu was shocked in his heart because he knew that Ancestor Hun Yi had noticed the unusual state of his soul. It's actually a member of the chaotic race. I never expected that the chaotic race still exists. Ancestor Hun Yi had a complicated expression on his face while he was excited. Will he come over and devour my soul? At this moment, a strand of strong anticipation had suddenly arisen in Murong Yu's heart. If Ancestor Hun Yi intended to devour his soul, then would the violet light within his soul destroy Ancestor Hun Yi's soul just like it had destroyed Hun Xian? Even though Ancestor Hun Yi was much stronger than Elder Hun Xian, but they were both at the Downlord realm in the end. The violet light should be able to destroy him, right? Murong Yu started to worry about his gains and losses. If the violet light within his soul was able to destroy Ancestor Hun Yi's soul, then the benefits Murong Yu would obtain were obvious, and it would be extremely terrifying. But if the violet light was unable to destroy Ancestor Hun Yi's soul, then it would be a tragedy. Murong Yu's body would be seized. That was something he was powerless to resist. Haha. Supposedly, the members of the chaotic race have an extremely high chance of becoming the legendary Downlords, and they might even become the strongest existences that control the heavens and the earth. What if I'm able to seize his body and supplement it with Soul Devour? I'll definitely be able to break through to the Downlord realm and even become the strongest existence in the heavens and the earth. At the same time that all sorts of thoughts flashed through Murong Yu's mind, Ancestor Hun Yi had suddenly started roaring with laughter. Come. Let's fight to the death. One of us will die. Murong Yu had gone mad in his heart. However, he revealed a wisp of panic on his face. He seemed to be extremely terrified. Kid, I've changed my mind. I'll make you become the strongest existence in the heavens and the earth. Ancestor Hun Yi roared with laughter as he'd already torn apart the space within Murong Yu's soul, and his entire soul charged in. Murong Yu gazed at Ancestor Hun Yi's soul with terror on his face. His heart was filled with extreme anticipation, yet he was also slightly uneasy. Swoosh! Ancestor Hun Yi's soul, which had attained the 9th rank of the Downlord realm, bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards Murong Yu's soul. Swoosh! Right when Ancestor Hun Yi's soul approached Murong Yu's soul, a dazzling violet light suddenly erupted from Murong Yu's soul. Chapter 2189. Swoosh! Hun Yi didn't even have the time to react before he was struck by the violet light that had suddenly appeared within Murong Yu's soul. With a crack, old Ancestor Hun Yi's soul shattered into pieces. However, there was a reason why Hun Yi's strength and status in the Hun clan was formidable. At the very least, his strength had been temporarily promoted to the Downlord realm, so he was much stronger than Elder Hun Xian. After all, Elder Hun Xian's soul had been obliterated by the violet light that came from Murong Yu's soul, and he didn't even have the time to react. On the other hand, only Hun Yi's soul had split into pieces. What's that? My soul. Right after his soul split into pieces, Hun Yi's shrill cry resounded. At the same time, Murong Yu noticed that Hun Yi's soul had started to move swiftly, and they approached each other and were already leaning against each other. They seemed to be on the verge of fusing into a new soul. However, there seemed to be an invisible barrier that was separating his soul from pieces. No matter how Hun Yi moved his soul fragments were still unable to completely fuse together. However, Murong Yu noticed that the invisible barrier had started to gradually weaken under Hun Yi's attack. It seemed like it wouldn't be long before Hun Yi would be able to break through that barrier and completely fuse his soul fragments into a complete soul. The violet light was actually unable to directly annihilate Hun Yi's soul, and that made Murong Yu feel extremely worried. Because he couldn't control the violet light at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to worry about Hun Yi at all. If he couldn't kill Hun Yi in one go, then what about twice? If he couldn't kill Hun Yi in 2 tries, then he would try 3 times. He would still be able to kill Hun Yi in the end. At the same time that he was thinking about it, Murong Yu had gathered all the energy of his soul and executed numerous myriad waves of soul that smashed madly towards Hun Yi's soul. Moreover, he had focused all of his attacks on one of forefather Hun Yi's soul fragments. Murong Yu removed it deeply. With the huge gap in strength between him and Hun Yi, he was unable to destroy all of Hun Yi's soul fragments. So, he had no choice but to destroy them. Even though destroying a single soul fragment wouldn't be able to kill Hun Yi, it would weaken Hun Yi's strength, right? However, the gap between Murong Yu and Hun Yi's strength was too huge. All of his attacks were only able to destroy a small portion of old ancestor Hun Yi's soul. He was unable to harm old ancestor Hun Yi at all. You actually possessed such a secret ability. However, I'll kill you. I'll destroy you right now. Old ancestor Hun Yi's sinister voice resounded throughout Murong Yu's soul space. His soul fragments had already taken the initiative to attack Murong Yu's soul. Hun's attack, T kill, S to twos to kill, S to kill, T Hun to T twos a huts. S Hun soul, S's Hun's Hun to Hun's soul Hun tes to Hun ts. Therefore, when Hun Yi attacked, Murong Yu's soul began to tremble. It was because he sensed danger. Murong Yu was shocked. If Hun Yi attacked him, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Therefore, he launched a frenzied attack. However, it only slowed down Hun Yi's attack a little. Whoosh! In a split second, old ancestor Hun Yi's attack had already reached Murong Yu's soul. Just as Murong Yu was cursing in his heart and Hun Yi was feeling smug, whoosh! A purple light shot into the sky from Murong Yu's soul. A terrifying pressure instantly pressed down on Hun Yi's soul. Old ancestor Hun Yi felt a pressure that came from the depths of his soul fiercely pressing down on his soul, making him feel like he had to submit. Even though he was extremely unwilling, he couldn't get rid of the feeling of wanting to submit. It was as if he was born with it. The Murong Yu before him was like an indomitable giant that made him want to submit to him. Hun Yi couldn't understand why he had such a feeling. Why did he feel like he was submitting to Murong Yu? Of course, all of this happened in a flash. In an instant, the purple light had shone on Hun Yi's soul. An intense tearing sensation came from old ancestor Hun Yi's soul fragments, almost causing old ancestor Hun Yi to faint. Then, there was an extremely shrill scream. Poof! 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 Murong Yu clearly saw that Hun Yi's soul began to melt under the purple light's attack. Hun Yi's soul fragments began to retreat as he screamed. It couldn't be helped, the purple light was too terrifying. Although Hun Yi was powerful, he still couldn't resist it. What a pity! A look of pity appeared on Murong Yu's face. Although the purple light was terrifying, it still couldn't directly destroy Hun Yi's soul. It should be able to do it if it happened a few more times. However, Hun Yi had already retreated to the edge of the soul space, as if he was about to escape and return to his physical body. Facing the purple light in the depths of Murong Yu's soul, he was really afraid. At this moment, he temporarily dismissed the idea of continuing to devour Murong Yu's soul. However, at this moment, Hun Yi's expression suddenly changed. Although his soul had been shattered into pieces, his expression could still be seen. It was just incomplete. "Little bastard, what did you do to my physical body?" Hun Yi roared. This was because when his soul wanted to return to his physical body, he realized that his physical body had disappeared. His soul couldn't even sense his physical body. There were only two possibilities for this to happen. The first possibility was that his physical body had been destroyed by Murong Yu. The other possibility was that his physical body had been sealed and kept in Murong Yu's treasure space. The only thing Hun Yi could think of was that his soul had been destroyed by Murong Yu. After all, he originally thought that he could completely devour Murong Yu's soul. Therefore, he didn't care about his physical body at all. But who knew that the result wasn't so? Seeing Hun Yi's flustered and exasperated look, Murong Yu couldn't help but sneer. "I'm really sorry that I didn't tell you before. Your physical body has been destroyed by me into millions of pieces." Old ancestor Hun Yi flew into a rage, wishing he could slap Murong Yu to death. However, he stood rooted to the ground, not daring to move. Devour Murong Yu's soul? He was afraid of the terrifying purple light. If this happened a few more times, his soul would be annihilated. What if he left Murong Yu's soul space? He was just a soul fragment. Without a physical body, how could he survive? Possession? It wasn't impossible to take possession. It was even to the extent that Hun Yi dared to guarantee that he could even take possession of the bodies of Downlords. However, after he took possession, the new body and soul wouldn't be very compatible. In this way, it would cause his strength to decline greatly. Would anyone be willing to transform from an extraordinary expert into an ordinary cultivator? So, Hun Yi didn't want to take possession. Even if he wanted to take possession, he wanted to take possession of Murong Yu's body. So, even though Hun Yi was slightly afraid of the purple light in the depths of Murong Yu's soul, however, he was still slightly unwilling to leave just like that. Otherwise, he would be entirely capable of leaving Murong Yu's soul. As for Murong Yu, because he couldn't control the purple light, so it was very uncertain. So, he didn't dare touch Hun Yi for now. So, both of them were in confrontation within Murong Yu's soul space. Both of them stared at each other, yet they didn't dare make a move. Actually, both of them were thinking of a way to annihilate the other. However, they were unable to find an effective method in the end. "I wonder how strong I'll be able to bring forth once I take control of Hun Yi's body? Will it be able to help me?" Murong Yu pondered in his heart. He hadn't destroyed Hun Yi's body because it was the body of a Downlord. It was extremely strong, and it was extremely useful to him. If he was able to refine and absorb it, then wouldn't Hun Yi become his slave or puppet? At that time, Murong Yu would have an extremely important figure in the Hun clan. It was even to the extent that he could use Hun Yi to regain control of the Colossus that was the Hun clan. Murong Yu didn't know that Hun Yi's thoughts had already taken him to be a member of the chaotic race. He seemed to have firmly believed that he was a member of the chaotic race. This thought had appeared naturally, and it was even to the extent that he hadn't noticed it. Even though the purple light is strange, it's very likely that it's a treasure that little bastard obtained by accident. So long as it's a treasure, then that little bastard's strength is probably unable to activate its might for a long time. Perhaps that little bastard is only able to use it twice? Hun Yi gazed at Murong Yu while his eyes flickered and emanated traces of cold light. Right, that's definitely the case. Otherwise, why would he stand in confrontation with me and not attack me directly? After such a thought appeared in his mind, Hun Yi quickly confirmed it. Swoosh. In the next moment, He immediately launched an attack. A soul fragment shot towards Murong Yu's soul. This time, Hun Yi had learned his lesson, and he didn't attack with all of his soul. In this way, even if his estimation was wrong, he would only lose a portion of his soul and not all of it. Murong Yu was slightly perturbed as he gazed at Hun Yi who was attacking him, because he didn't dare guarantee that the violet light was still there. In an instant, Hun Yi's soul fragment had charged over to Murong Yu's soul. Swoosh! Strong and dazzling violet light appeared once more. Hun Yi's heart shook while a bad feeling arose from the bottom of his heart. Pooh! Hun Yi watched helplessly as his soul fragment near Murong Yu's soul was struck by the violet light. After a muffled sound, the soul fragment was annihilated from his sight. Chapter 2190. The moment Patriarch Hun Yi's soul fragment was annihilated, a huge amount of soul energy surged into Murong Yu's soul. At the same time, there were a large number of memory fragments. This was the special ability of the purple light. After annihilating the opponent's soul, it would automatically absorb the opponent's soul energy and memories and turn them into its own. Rumble as expected of one of the most powerful patriarchs of the Soul Clan. After Murong Yu devoured Patriarch Hun Yi's soul fragment, his soul realm that was originally suppressed at the third level of the Heaven Realm could no longer be suppressed and directly broke through. Fourth level of the Heaven Realm. Murong Yu was shocked. Originally, he could continue to improve. This was because Hun Xian's soul energy had not been completely devoured. However, he did not continue to improve. This was because that would cause his foundation to be unstable. Now that his cultivation realm was forcefully increased, his foundation would become unstable. That was why he was shocked. However, he quickly discovered the difference. Although his cultivation realm had been increased, his foundation did not become unstable. He was even surprised to discover that Patriarch Hun Yi's soul energy was also consolidating his cultivation realm while increasing his cultivation realm. The effect was even better than him consolidating it. Therefore, although he quickly broke through to the fourth level of the Heaven Realm, his foundation was completely stabilized after the breakthrough. There was no unstable foundation at all. Moreover, just like Hun Xian's soul energy, Patriarch Hun Yi's soul energy was also increasing Murong Yu's cultivation and physical body while his soul realm was being increased. Rumble, a series of sounds like beans being fried continuously came from Murong Yu's body. Murong Yu's cultivation and physical body had both broken through and reached the fourth level of the Heaven Realm in one fell swoop. This speed was really not an ordinary speed. However, it was precisely because Patriarch Hun Yi's soul energy had increased Murong Yu's soul, cultivation and physical body realm that he had consolidated. Therefore, Patriarch Hun Yi's soul energy was quickly depleted. Although it had only increased Murong Yu's cultivation realm by a small level, it was already enough to make Murong Yu very happy. Originally, his combat strength had already reached the first level of the initial Dao realm. Now, it had reached the second level of the initial Dao realm. Moreover, this was not his final strength. After the breakthrough, Murong Yu could clearly feel it. His soul and power could fuse with more vortexes. The more vortexes there were, the more terrifying Murong Yu's destructive power was. Destructive power was combat power. The more destructive power was terrifying, the stronger the combat power. Old ancestor Hun Yi watched helplessly as his soul was destroyed. At the same time, Murong Yu's cultivation increased. Even a fool would understand what was going on. Of the Hun Yi's soul energy, of Murong Yu's soul energy's soul, this made of Hun Yi's. He Hun Yi's. Murong of Hun Yi, Hun Yi's. Of the S of a of S ofs, or was it because Murong Yu's soul was threatened that the purple light would counterattack? Yes, that must be it. Patriarch Hun Yi was enlightened. However, he still thought that it was Murong Yu's treasure. He did not know that the purple light came from the depths of Murong Yu's soul. It was in his soul. Was it an innate ability of the chaotic tribe? My strength has increased. I wonder if I can control the purple light to attack? Murong Yu thought to himself. He had already begun to try controlling and attacking the purple light. Swoosh! A purple light flashed in front of him. A purple light the size of a pinky tore through the void and bombarded one of Patriarch Hun Yi's soul fragments. This was Murong Yu's soul space. He was the master of this place. Therefore, Patriarch Hun Yi did not even have time to react. His entire soul fragment was hit by the purple light. Crack! A clear and resounding crack resounded, and then the soul fragment was directly obliterated. An extremely enormous strand of soul energy surged swiftly into Murong Yu's soul, and it was mixed with a huge amount of memory fragments. Little bastard! Don't you dare! Patriarch Hun Yi's face had turned livid, and he started cursing loudly at Murong Yu. At the same time that he cursed madly, he even swiftly withdrew the soul fragments so as to prevent himself from being blasted apart again. However, he still hadn't left Murong Yu's soul. You refused to give up. On the other side, Murong Yu roared with laughter. He hadn't expected that he would actually be able to control the purple light to attack after breaking through a realm. If the purple light possesses such terrifying might, then would anyone be a match for him in the future? Even if they were Tao Lords, they would still be crushed to death by him. Swoosh! 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 Strand after strand of purple light ceaselessly shot out violently from the depths of his soul under his control, and they tore through space as they smashed madly towards Patriarch Hun Yi. Patriarch Hun Yi's soul almost left his body, and his soul fragments swiftly teleported within Murong Yu's soul to avoid Murong Yu's attacks. However, where could he hide within Murong Yu's soul? There was nowhere to hide at all. After a few breaths of time passed, a few more soul fragments had been blasted into powder, and they transformed into Murong Yu's strength and memories. However, Murong Yu's attacks had slowed down at this moment. It wasn't that he wanted to slow down, and he wanted to kill Patriarch Hun Yi. However, it couldn't be helped because Murong Yu was quite exhausted right now. Even though he could control the violet light, he couldn't release it without limit. Every single strand of violet light consumed his mind, and the consumption of his mind was extraordinarily huge. So, his mind was swiftly exhausted after he successively released a large amount of violet light. At this moment, he was unable to continue releasing violet light. Murong Yu was puzzled by this. His mind hadn't been exhausted at all when his soul had been forced to release violet light. But it consumed so much when he took the initiative to release it? Moreover, there was a huge difference between the violet light he released actively and passively. The violet light he released actively was only the size of a little finger. However, the violet light he released passively was like a pillar that held up the heavens, and it illuminated a myriad of kilometers. Recover his mind. While he was in confrontation with Patriarch Hun Yi, Murong Yu made the best use of his time to recover his mind. Every single time he recovered a certain amount of his mind, he would take the initiative to attack. After doing this a few times, Patriarch Hun Yi's soul fragments had suffered a huge amount of damage and obliteration. His strength had suffered a huge loss. However, Patriarch Hun Yi noticed a pattern. Finally, after Murong Yu stopped attacking once more, Patriarch Hun Yi roared with laughter. "Haha! Little bastard, you can't release violet light anymore, right? Now I'll end you. I want to see what kind of treasure can release violet light." Amidst his wild laughter, all of Patriarch Hun Yi's soul fragments charged madly at Murong Yu. Murong Yu's face revealed a look of shock and horror. However, he was sneering in his heart. In a split second, Patriarch Hun Yi's soul fragments once again charged at Murong Yu's soul. They were about to pounce on Murong Yu's soul. At this moment, A dazzling light shot out from the depths of Murong Yu's soul, instantly annihilating Patriarch Hun Yi's soul. Ah! Little bastard, you lied to me! Patriarch Hun Yi let out a shrill scream. His soul fragments, which had already been severely damaged, began to be destroyed under the illumination of the purple light. Of course, Patriarch Hun Yi wouldn't give up just like that. He began to charge madly. Finally, Patriarch Hun Yi charged out of the violet light. However, there was only a small piece of his soul fragment. The remaining soul fragments all became Murong Yu's power, increasing his soul, cultivation, and physical realm. Whoosh! Patriarch Hun Yi's soul fragments turned into a ray of light and tore through the void, trying to escape from Murong Yu's soul space. However, at this moment, a violet light the size of a pinky finger tore through the void and shot over at lightning speed. Boom! Before Patriarch Hun Yi's soul could escape from Murong Yu's soul space, it was hit by the violet light and was annihilated. However, at the same time, he heard Murong Yu's mocking voice. "Old man, all's fair in war. All's fair in war." Yes, when Murong Yu knew he could control the violet light, he began to use it to attack Patriarch Hun Yi. Even though his mind was completely exhausted, he didn't stop attacking. Every time he had enough mental energy, he would continue to attack with the violet light. This created a false impression for old ancestor Hun Yi. Murong Yu couldn't control the purple light attacks limitlessly. That was why Patriarch Hun Yi dared to attack Murong Yu. Little did he know that Murong Yu was waiting for him to take the initiative to attack. This was because when the soul was in danger, the violet light would automatically appear and kill the enemy. The violet light that appeared passively was extremely terrifying. Therefore, Patriarch Hun Yi died under the violet light's attack in the end. Whoosh! Murong Yu heaved a sigh of relief. This time, he was going all out. This was because he didn't know if the violet light would appear every time when his soul was in mortal danger to protect him. If it didn't appear, Murong Yu would be in trouble. His body would be taken over by Patriarch Hun Yi. However, he succeeded in the end. Should I break through first or refine Patriarch Hun Yi's body? Murong Yu sat cross-legged on the ground and pondered. After devouring Hun Xin and Patriarch Hun Yi's souls, Murong Yu could raise his cultivation level to a higher level. However, Patriarch Hun Yi couldn't wait. After all, he already had all of Patriarch Hun Yi's memories. However, it would take time to create a Patriarch Hun Yi that was the same as the original. I'll refine Patriarch Hun Yi first. There'll be plenty of time to raise my strength in the future. Murong Yu finally decided. This was because only Patriarch Hun Yi could save Hun Dan, who was suppressed. Hun Dan was sealed in the Soul Tribe. Would he be able to suppress the evil power in his body? Chapter 2191. Hun Rong and the other elders stood at both sides of the hall while Hun Yi sat upright on the seat of the host, and he gazed coldly at the four ancestors within the hall. Hun Rong was one of the four ancestors that Murong Yu had met earlier. However, even though they were all ancestors of the Hun clan, there was a huge difference in status between them. For example, Hun Yi could sit upright on the seat of the host. On the other hand, Hun Rong and the others could only stand at both sides of the hall. Murong Yu didn't devour Hun Xion's soul, so he doesn't know the secrets of the Hun clan at all. So, I've already spared him. At the same time, from today onward, Murong Yu will be a great contributor to our Hun clan, and we can't treat him unfairly. It's even to the extent that we have to place emphasis on fostering him. We strive to make him a genius like Hun Dan. Even though our Hun clan has developed well in the recent years, we lack geniuses like Hun Dan. Hun Rong and the others exchanged glances and still felt slight disbelief. However, since Hun Yi had spoken, then what could they do even if they didn't believe him? Moreover, since Hun Yi had decided to place emphasis on fostering Murong Yu, then so, they couldn't even set their sights on Murong Yu. Otherwise, who knew if old ancestor Hun Yi had placed some sort of restriction on Morong Yu's body? If Hun Yi found out about it, then perhaps he would kill them on the spot. It wasn't like Hun Yi hadn't killed the ancestors of the Hun clan. Have all of you noticed that Hun Yi is slightly strange? He seems to be much weaker than before. He's even inferior to us? The four ancestors exchanged glances before they spoke via voice transmission. The other three ancestors nodded lightly. They'd noticed that Hun Yi was different when they entered the hall. Because Hun Yi was truly too weak. If they weren't in the territory of the Hun clan and hadn't noticed that Hun Yi was exactly the same as Hun Yi from before, and even his aura hadn't changed. They even wondered if this Hun Yi was the same Hun Yi from before. A peak Downlord. Presently, Ancestor Hun Yi didn't even possess a strength at the Downlord realm, and his strength was inferior to any one of the four ancestors present here. However, although the four of them were more powerful than forefather Hun Yi, they were still quite weak. However, he did not have any strange thoughts. Although these people harbored evil intentions, they didn't dare to have any ideas about forefather Hun Yi's power. Moreover, forefather Hun Yi did not have anything that they coveted. Alright, I made some mistakes during my training a few days ago, resulting in some problems with my strength. I need to fix it. By the way, Hun Dan didn't do anything wrong. You can let him leave the reflection cliff. After a while, old ancestor Hun Yi waved his hand tiredly at the four great ancestors, indicating for them to leave. The four old ancestors suddenly understood. It turned out that there was a mistake in his cultivation. Otherwise, why would his strength drop so much? Thus, the four of them left the hall without any suspicion. Morong Yu. When the four of them appeared at the entrance to the hall, they saw Morong Yu walking towards them. The four ancestors instantly stopped moving, and all of them gazed at Morong Yu with gloomy and indeterminate expressions. On the other hand, Ancestor Hun Rong even shouted coldly. Morong Yu stopped as well, and then he grinned at the four ancestors. The smile on his face was brilliant. But who knew? The four ancestors hadn't noticed that a wisp of cold light had flashed through the depths of Morong Yu's eyes. On the other hand, ghastly killing intent had arisen from the bottom of Morong Yu's heart. The four ancestors had once wanted to crush Morong Yu, and they even wanted to devour Morong Yu's soul. That had aroused killing intent in Morong Yu's heart. Of course, the thoughts of the four ancestors were the same. But they didn't dare make a move against Chen Shi now. At the very least, not only could they not target Morong Yu on the surface, they even had to place emphasis on fostering him. So it's Morong Yu. We've wronged you. If you have any questions about cultivation in the future, you can ask me, said one of the ancestors with a smile. Hun Rong and the other two also smiled at him. Of course. I hope that the four ancestors won't be stingy with your guidance in the future. Morong Yu's smile became even more brilliant. However, he was laughing coldly in his heart. Even a pig wouldn't believe the four ancestors' words. Let alone Morong Yu. After exchanging a few pleasantries, both sides bade farewell. Hun Rong and the other three quickly left to release Hun Dan, who was suppressed in the cliff of reflection. As for Morong Yu, he pushed open the doors to the hall and walked in. Clang! After Morong Yu entered the hall, he closed the door. At that moment, Ancestor Hun Yi, who had been sitting on the main seat of the hall, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale. In fact, Morong Yu could even see his aura churning like a tidal wave. It was incomparably chaotic. Morong Yu's face changed slightly. He took a step forward and appeared next to Ancestor Hun Yi. At the same time, he reached out his hand and grabbed Ancestor Hun Yi's shoulder. Rumble, a huge amount of power and soul power quickly flowed from Morong Yu's hands into Ancestor Hun Yi's body like a torrent. After receiving Morong Yu's power and soul power, Ancestor Hun Yi's chaotic aura gradually stabilized. His pale face gradually regained some color. Whoosh! After a while, Morong Yu waved his hand and Ancestor Hun Yi disappeared from the spot. The moment Ancestor Hun Yi disappeared, Morong Yu also disappeared from the hall. When they appeared once more, they were in Hichu Luoshu. Yes, the current Ancestor Hun Yi wasn't the original Ancestor Hun Yi. The original Ancestor Hun Yi's soul had been devoured by Morong Yu a long time ago. The current Ancestor Hun Yi was only Ancestor Hun Yi's body. However, his soul wasn't Ancestor Hun Yi's, and it was Morong Yu's soul clone. It turned out that after he devoured Ancestor Hun Yi's soul, Morong Yu had created a soul clone and taken control of Ancestor Hun Yi's body. However, Ancestor Hun Yi was an extraordinary existence at the Daolord realm after all. Even if his soul was dead, his body was still quite formidable. So, it was extremely difficult for Morong Yu to take complete control of it. However, because he was worried about Hundan, Morong Yu had appeared in Ancestor Hun Yi's identity after he took initial control of Ancestor Hun Yi's body. Even though it was only for a short period of time, Morong Yu's soul clone was on the verge of being unable to suppress Ancestor Hun Yi's body. He'd suffered an extremely huge backlash. If Morong Yu had arrived a little later, then Morong Yu's soul clone would have suffered backlash from Ancestor Hun Yi's body, and his soul clone would have been obliterated. At that time, Hun Rong and the others would notice that something was off, and they would be exposed. On the other hand, Morong Yu's subsequent plans had come to an end just like that. Time acceleration. Morong Yu, who'd attained the 5th rank of the Heavenly Realm, started to work with the soul clone within Ancestor Hun Yi's body to suppress and take complete control of Ancestor Hun Yi's body. After time was accelerated, only a day had passed in the outside world, and Morong Yu had finally suppressed the backlash from Ancestor Hun Yi's body. This wasn't Morong Yu's objective. His objective was for Morong Yu to take complete control of Ancestor Hun Yi's body. He wanted to recover his peak combat strength as soon as possible. Right now, he only had the strength of a peak Daolord because he couldn't completely control Ancestor Hun Yi's body. During this time, Morong Yu had gone out a few times with Ancestor Hun Yi's body. As expected, Hun Rong and the other patriarchs didn't dare to disobey. When Ancestor Hun Yi gave the order, they released Hundan. After being released, Hundan quickly left the Soul Race's territory. According to Morong Yu's understanding, Hundan hadn't been controlled by the evil power at that time. He must have left in a hurry to go to that mysterious planet. At the same time, because of Ancestor Hun Yi's words, the Soul Race took care of Shenzhen. Although they didn't provide any substantial resources. Because of the Soul Race's secret care, Shenzhen wasn't a threat recently. In particular, Zhu Xiaoning, a business genius, was like a fish in water. Shenzhen's auction house was opening more and more. Because of the auction house, Shenzhen was raking in money every day. With the support of a large amount of resources, Shenzhen's disciples were flourishing. Their strength had increased greatly. Morong Yu's women and his children weren't a big deal. These people were naturally people that Morong Yu had poured a lot of effort and resources into. Moreover, their aptitudes were top-notch. Therefore, one by one, they broke through quickly. Some people had already reached the true self realm. As for Li Feng, Duanmu Qing, Fan Tong, and other Morong Yu's brothers and Shenzhen's disciples, they were the same. Although some people might not be as good as Zhao Jiqing's group of 5 or Morong Xian's group, their progress was extremely fast. A large number of experts quickly surged. Under such a favorable situation, Morong Yu believed that it was only a matter of time before Shenzhen became one of the strongest forces in the universe. This was naturally something that he was happy to see. In the following time, Morong Yu didn't leave the Soul Race's territory. Instead, he continued to refine Patriarch Hun Yi's body in the Hichu Luoshu. Occasionally, he would appear in the Soul Race's territory as himself or Patriarch Hun Yi. During this time, Morong Yu would occasionally enter the Soul Race's soul pool to temper his body. At the same time, relying on Patriarch Hun E and Elder Hun Xian's soul power, his cultivation realm also improved greatly. If this continued, by the time he completely controlled Patriarch Hun Yi's body, he might have reached the true self realm. At the very least, he would reach the peak of the sky realm. And if he reached the true self realm, his combat strength would reach the Tao Lord realm in one fell swoop. Time slowly passed. Nothing happened to Shenzhen, the Soul Race, or the nearby factions. It seemed that everything was moving on the right track. However, what Murong Yu and the vast majority of people didn't know was that a frightening crisis was brewing and was slowly approaching. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.